There's no greater feeling in the world than being excited for an upcoming video game, especially when that feeling pays off. Hearing the rumors, getting confirmation, seeing a trailer, picture, and all the features, it's all wonderful. Say what you will about Bethesda, but they were red hot after the launch of Oblivion, and people were excited for their next big game. That next game was no other than Fallout 3. Unknown to me at the time was the fear spreading throughout the Fallout community after they had heard Bethesda acquired the Fallout IP. They were worried what Bethesda might do to the Fallout brand. I came to the hype train for Fallout 3 rather late. In fact, I think I only ever heard about its release months before its launch. I was actually excited. I had no fear of it being bad. I loved Oblivion when I first played it, so when I heard the news, I was deeply intrigued. I decided I wanted to play the first 2 games, so that's exactly what I did, in preparation for Fallout 3. Fallout 1 knocked my socks off, and Fallout 2 put my socks back on again only to knock them off. My body was now ready for Fallout 3. I rented a copy of the game from my local video rental store, got myself some Dr. Pepper, sat down in front of my PlayStation 3, and started the game. I was instantly hooked. The second that game started up and the menu music from Inonzor kicked in, I was filled with hope, yet fear. It made me feel like whatever journey I was about to undertake was filled with danger, but that it was my job, nay, my destiny, to do. I spent the next 2 days wandering the wasteland. I lost myself within the world. I explored the ruins of buildings, plundering the depths of the subways, helping those down on their luck, and eventually saving the capital wasteland. I loved my time with Fallout 3, and to this very day I cherish those memories. I never forgot that iconic moment of stepping out into the world for the very first time, or exploding an undetonated nuclear bomb. Fallout 3, in my eyes, was great. Flawed, yes, but great nonetheless. Now that's how I felt back then. However, excitement has a tendency to cloud one's judgment. We overlook things and rate it higher than we should. Does Fallout 3 still hold up today? Was it an actual good sequel to Fallout 2? Did Bethesda help or hinder the Fallout brand? What new things did they add? What did they remove? Should you play it? Well, the only way to answer these questions and more is to actually sit down, play the game, and take a look at Bethesda's 2008 release of Fallout 3. And remember, as always, spoiler for the entire story. Before we get into the story proper, I should point out that this character was actually created by you. I asked in a series of polls here on YouTube how you might like this character to be. If you wanted them to be good or bad, what weapons they'd use, their gender, and even their name. So, for anybody curious how I came up with this character, now you have your answer. It was thanks to you. So thank you. Sit back, grab your snacks, grab your pee bucket, your most comfy pillow, and relax, because this is, if you couldn't tell already, is gonna be a long story, and the story begins now. We start our story at the beginning, and when I say the beginning, I quite literally mean it, because today is the very day of our birth. This is... hold on, let me spin the wheel here. Okay, this is Vivian. Vivian is born into this world, deep inside Vault 101, to proud parents James and Catherine. But before anybody can celebrate, Vivian's mother suddenly enters cardiac arrest and passes away. A year later, Vivian takes her first steps while being urged on by her father. She takes those first steps, but it was all a trap. It turns out our father was actually tricking us into stepping into the playpen so he could cage us like the wild, non-crawling beast we are. He steps out of the room, and Vivian gets to work. She learns how to become a pro soccer player and even make critical and permanent life choices in the form of her special stats. 1 year old and already a whiz kid. Just then, our father bursts into the room and catches us. He chuckles and reads to us our mother's favorite Bible passage. I am Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end. I will give unto him that is athirst of the fountain of water of life freely. Revelation 21:6. The power of Christ must have been a little too much for 1-year-old Vivian, because time skips forward 9 years to our 10th birthday party. It's a good day and a fantastic turnout. Everybody's here. Our father, our best friend Amada, her father the Vault Overseer, even our worst enemy and childhood bully, Butch. It's a wonderful day. Since we're now 10 years old, the Vault Overseer gives us our very own Pip-Boy 3000, which allows us to track any quests and items we may have, and even our health. It isn't the newest model, but it's awesome all the same. After thanking Amada, having our cake ruined, and giving our delicious sweet roll to Butch, our father pulls us aside and takes us elsewhere in the vault, where we're given our very own BB gun. Thanks to our father and our closest family friend, Jonas. Now, after killing our first Radroach, Vivian has a strange sensation come over her. She finds herself wishing the BB gun shot lasers rather than tiny metal balls. She's always enjoyed lasers and anything sci-fi like that. However, it is still a great gift and a great day. So much so that having our photo taken to remember this very moment, we are once again shot into the future, 6 years into the future to be precise. Vivian is now 16, and today is the big day. No, it's not her sweet 16th. It's even better. Today is the goat at school. Wowzers! Can you believe it? Well, Vivian can't, and after a quick medical exam from her father, she rushes off to school. Now, life inside Vault 101 is pretty fantastic. Plenty of fresh water, clean food, rooms, and even sweet bobbleheads. But not all is sunshine and rainbows inside this vault. No. We still have Butch and his stupid gang, this 3-man gang, the Tunnel Snakes. Butch and his entourage love picking on people in the vault, especially Amada and Vivian, and today is no different. Just outside the classroom, Butch bullies Amada, but never one to shy away from a confrontation, our hero Vivian steps in, using her words, not her fists, to defuse the situation. After Amada thanks us, we can finally take the goat. Now, you might be wondering, Lycan, what's a goat? Well, from what I understand, it's a new age internet slang that means hip, cool, or radical. Personally, I don't get it, and I wish radical would make a return to the mainstream, but whatever, what the hell do I know? But what is a GOAT? Well, that's easy. GOAT stands for Generalized Occupational Aptitude Test. This lovely test will forever lock us into a job here inside the vault. It's able to do this with science. Ooh, isn't that amazing? Anyway, it takes our answers, crunches the numbers, and picks a job we'd be best suited upon based on those answers. After we take the test, it turns out Vivian's secret love of bare feet is justified because her future job will be as a pedicurist. After the news and excitement of handling strangers' feet for a job sinks in, Vivian blacks out right there on the classroom floor, and another 3 years goes by. She's awoken to the sounds of the vault alarms blaring and Armada shaking her awake. Something's wrong. Armada hurriedly explains that our father has somehow left the vault. Vault 101 has never been opened since the bombs first fell. The news, however, doesn't stop there. It turns out Vault Security has killed our family friend Jonas and is now on the hunt for us. Armada explains that she doesn't know what's going on, but whatever her father, the Vault Overseer, has planned for us, it isn't good, and we must now also escape the Vault, not only to find our father, but to avoid whatever wild punishment is about to come our way. Armada hands us a 10mm pistol and explains that the only way out is through a secret tunnel in the Vault Overseer's office. After that, we're on our own. Vivian slowly makes her way around and doing her best to avoid the security guards. Eventually, she bumps into a panicked Butch who begs us for help. Turns out, his mother is being attacked by some rad roaches and he wants us to kill them and save his mother. Why doesn't he do this on his own? I mean, after all, he's Big Bad Butch, bully of Vault 101 and leader of the Tunnel Snakes. Surely he could save his mother from a few rad roaches. Well, it turns out, not so much. He's afraid of rad roaches. Really, really afraid of them. Vivian doesn't make fun of him. She only sees a person in need of help. Yeah, okay, he's been a bit of a jerk to her pretty much for as long as she can remember, but she's a good person, and if she turned her back on him now, she'd never be able to forgive herself, so she agrees to help Butch. Vivian runs into the room, kills all the rad roaches, saves Butch's mother, and as thanks, Butch gives her his tunnel snake jacket. After that, Vivian just continues on. She did think about putting it on, but I mean, Butch has probably been sweating in that thing all day and no thanks. It's rough going, and Vivian does her very best to fend off the rad roaches and Vault Security. Both want her dead. It's chaos inside Vault 101. A lot of the people here blame Vivian and her father for this craziness. Some people even actually try to leave the vault. Those people are quickly shot to death. Armada is even interrogated by the head of security and her own father. Vivian thinks about helping her, but recalls Armada telling her not to worry about her and just continue on. This, of course, was her misremembering what Armada said, but let's not dwell on that. Mistakes happen to everybody. Vivian sneaks past the interrogation room and into the Overseer's office, and what she learns is a little disturbing. You see, to open the secret tunnel to the vault door, she needs to access the Vault Overseer's computer, and while on said computer, she also takes the time to read through some folders, and it turns out, well, the Overseer's lied about a lot of things. Vault 101 has actually been opened before. In fact, small groups of surveyors have already learned that it's actually safe enough outside. The radiation is low enough, and, well, I mean, yeah, there are dangers out there, like giant ants, but the world is slowly rebuilding and recovering. Some people in the wasteland have even created a town nearby called Megaton. Heck, some of the people from the team were actually staying in Megaton as ambassadors from the vault. Regardless, the Overseer was worried about the dangers and sealed off the vault again, and even wiped most of the records of it even being opened in the first place. On top of that, he's even been spying on some of the residents here in the vault. Vivian was speechless, but pushed it all out of her mind because right now she had to escape. Vivian opened the secret tunnel and continued forward, eventually reaching the vault door and opening it. As the door loudly opened, Vivian didn't even notice Amada was standing next to her until she said something. She tells Vivian that she escaped from the interrogation room and was here to say goodbye. Vivian tries to get Amada to leave with her, but she explains that it's best if she stays. After that, security busts into the room and tries to kill Vivian, but she lays the smackdown on them and runs into the cave just outside the vault. As she does, she hears the large vault door closing behind her. Vivian turns and takes one more look back at Vault 101's door seal back up, and with a heavy heart, exits the cave and into the world for the very first time. As she gazes upon the capital wasteland and the ruins of DC far in the distance, she fills her mind, body, and soul with determination. A determination to find her father and figure out what's going on. Vivian explores the ruins of an old town, trying to get her bearings. As she explores, she sees and hears a flying robot which is constantly broadcasting propaganda from a group called the Enclave. Vivian has no idea who that is, but continues to half listen to the broadcast as she explores the remains of houses. Eventually, she decides it'd be best to start the search for her father in the town of Megaton. As she approaches the large town, the huge metal doors lift open, allowing her safe passage into the city. Once inside, she meets with the town's sheriff, Lucas Sims. The man is nice and welcoming, and he explains that as long as we follow the rules here in Megaton, there won't be any issues. Vivian asks Lucas if he'd seen her father come into town, and it turns out he had, and that he knows that he went to the local bar in town called Moriarty's Saloon. Lucas explains that if we want more information, we should probably start our search there. Vivian makes her way up the cobbled together scrap metal ramps towards the bar. Vivian notes that despite how it looks, the city of Megaton is actually quite an extraordinary feat of construction. Yeah, it's made of scrap metal and debris, but it would have taken a great amount of effort to even build it at all. It was impressive in its own right. Vivian entered the bar and spoke with the owner, Colin Moriarty. It turns out he does indeed know our father and spoke with him, but he also knows who we are. This takes Vivian by surprise, and when asked to explain how exactly he knows us, Colin tells Vivian that her father actually passed through Megaton 19 years ago, and with him was us. Well, at least an infant version of us, along with his Brotherhood of Steel friend. Our father was never born in the vault. We were never born in the vault. Our father had somehow gained entry to Vault 101 and lied to us about it. Now, that's one hell of a surprise, one that raises a few questions, but like all good mysteries, we don't have the answers. Colin then tells Vivian that our father went to DC to a place called Galaxy News Radio, and after that, Colin bids us farewell. Well, That's a lot to take in, and Vivian was left with more questions than answers. However, she at least had a lead, and after doing a few quests for the people around here in Megaton, such as disabling a live undetonated nuclear freaking bomb in the center of town, helping the owner of a general store write down a book on wasteland survival, and of course, delivering a letter to a young woman's family in which it turns out her entire family is killed and eaten, and now her younger brother is now in some sort of vampiric cult. You know, stuff like that. Simple little things. After those crazy missions, Vivian finally hits the roads towards... Before I continue, I have to point out two things that appear in the footage going forward. You might notice a dog following me around from time to time. That's dog meat. I found him in a junkyard on one of my little adventures. I had fully intended on him to actually be part of this story. However, due to a few factors with companions that I'll get to later in the gameplay section, I thought it was best to just cut him out for the sake of storytelling. He'll appear and vanish, mostly vanish from the footage, but I wanted to address this now so later on you're not like, hey, why didn't you bring dog meat with you? Why didn't you mention dog meat? But second is my gun. This gun is from one of the DLCs. I actually triggered it accidentally far too early and I couldn't go back. And mostly it was out of sheer stubbornness. So, again, if you're watching this and throwing your snack of choice at your watching device of choice, screaming, why the hell do you have an alien space laser gun? Well, now you have your answer. Stupidity and stubbornness. Anyway, there you go. Back to your regularly scheduled YouTube video. The journey to DC was long and dangerous. The capital wasteland wasn't for the faint of heart. Mole rats, feral ghouls, raiders, exploding people, exploding mole rats, giant ants, a dead Yao Guai that wanted a hug, Gary, and death claws. Oh man, yeah, okay, there was a lot to deal with, but none of it mattered compared to the DC Metro. Yes, subway tunnels that ran underneath DC. They were a pain to navigate and 100% necessary. Anyway, Vivian was determined, however, and slowly made her way through the ghoul-infested tunnels, and after a little while, made it back up to the surface. While walking around the ruined city, Vivian quickly discovered that the ruins of DC were infested with super mutants. The green, hulking, not-so-bright brutes were everywhere and made progressing forward a nightmare. As luck would have it though, Vivian bumped into a squad of heavily armored members of the Brotherhood of Steel. This was the Lyons Pride, headed up by their leader, Sarah Lyons. This group was on its way to back up another squad of Brotherhood members at the Galaxy News radio building. What luck! Sarah, after learning, too, we were on our way to the Galaxy News radio building, allowed us to tag along. The skirmishes against the super mutants were frequent, but thanks to the Lyons Pride, we made it to the Galaxy News radio building. But, just as the last super mutant falls, and everybody begins to relax, the ground trembles, and a loud, unearthly roar echoes through the streets and buildings. One of the soldiers shouts out in terror, "Behemoth!" just as a wall of cars explodes, killing one of the Lyons Pride members. A gigantic super mutant storms through the fire, and everybody opens fire. This monstrosity was otherworldly tough and resilient. Small firearms seemed to do little more than tickle it. The behemoth flailed its oversized club around, killing anybody in its path. Thankfully, the combined strength of the Brotherhood soldiers and Vivian and a whole heck of a lot of bullets, the super mutant behemoth died. Sarah Lyons thanks Vivian for not only her bravery, but helping in the fight, and told her she should go up and speak to the DJ of Galaxy News Radio, 3Dog. Were you waiting for me to do the ow thing? Alright, okay, just once. Ready? Until next time, this is 3Dog. Ow! And you're listening to Galaxy News Radio, bringing you the truth, no matter how bad it hurts. Okay, I did not do that justice at all. I'm sorry, I apologize. Oh god, anyway, 3Dog knows who our father is, and actually knows where to find him. However, like all good video game characters, we need to do a little quid pro quo. 3Dog explains that not many people outside DC can hear his radio broadcast due to some super mutants shooting up the broadcast relay on top of the Washington Monument. He wants us to go and get the only replacement part around. Simple, right? Wrong. The location of this replacement dish is found inside the Museum of Technology, which just so happens to be located deep within super mutant territory. The place is quite literally an active war zone. For most, this would be an impossible task. You'd need a whole damn platoon to survive in there. However, 3Dog is no fool. He knows how to read people, and when he looks at Vivian, he reads, Vivian, laser goddess of the capital wasteland. And you know what? He's right. Vivian sets off for the Museum of Technology. The trek to the museum was a long, slow walk across town, and when I say across town, I mean halfway across town, down into some tunnels, into some raider building, back up into the tunnels, through a raider base inside the tunnels, wherever this is, up across an active war zone, up to this building, oh wait, that was the wrong building, okay, back into the active war zone, and then finally to the front doors of the museum. Easy. Easy. So easy. Inside the museum are more super mutants, but nothing Vivian can't handle. She zippity zaps whatever is in front of her, grabs the dish off of a lunar lander, heads back outside, across an active war zone once again, and finally to the Washington Monument. Okay. As Vivian rides the elevator up to the top of the monument, she thinks to herself, how even after the bombs leveled half of the city, this monument to America's first president still stands proud. Remember, fellas, it's not the size of your monument, it's how well it's constructed that counts. Once at the top, Vivian sets up the dish and returns back to 3Dog, who is now thankful everybody across the capital wasteland can now hear his show. As thanks, he tells us what he knows about our dad. 3Dog explains that our father did indeed stop at GNR and spoke about two things. Something called Project Purity and going to see a Dr. Lee in Rivet City. After that, 3Dog tells us the location of Rivet City and wishes us good luck on our search and also to keep up all of our good deeds across the wasteland. What a nice guy. The trip to Rivet City was eventful to say the least. Vivian found a party house in which a guy named Dukov lived alongside his two lady friends. One of the girls somehow got killed outside, ran outside, and then I guess, died out there. I have no idea. And the other girl was just sick of all the drama and decided to tag along with Vivian to Rivet City. And if all that wasn't enough, we stumbled upon a super mutant hideout. And after a firefight, Vivian rescued their hostage? Pet? Food? Vivian rescued somebody in need of help? Yeah, help. After that, Vivian then watched the person immediately flee the area, only to run back directly to another super mutant hideout. Vivian really started to question the life choices of the people in the Capital Wasteland, but whatever floats people's boats, right? Whatever. Maybe she's a super mutant groupie. I have no idea. I'm sure those exist somewhere. Eventually, after all of that, Rivet City was in sight, and things were looking up. The city was once actually an old aircraft carrier, and its days of sailing across the open ocean were long over because the ship was beached with no other way to get back out to sea. That, or because a quarter of the ship was broken off. Look, call me an optimist, but I think it's nothing a little duct tape, wonder glue, and scrap metal couldn't fix. Trust me, it'll buff right out. It's fine. It's fine. I've seen worse. The ship was a mess of stairs, halls, and rooms, which could be a little hard to navigate from time to time, but after a while, Vivian makes it to her destination, the lab in which Dr. Lee worked. Sadly, our father wasn't here, but Dr. Lee was, and she explained that he had left Rivet City already and gone to Project Purity. When asked what exactly that is, Dr. Lee goes on to tell us that before we were born, James, our father, Catherine, our mother, and a group of other scientists, Dr. Lee included, were all working on this Project Purity. The goal of the project was to create fresh, clean, drinkable water for everybody to have access to. The scientists, with help of the Brotherhood of Steel, got together and set up a giant water purifier inside the Jefferson Memorial Building. The work was hard, the hours long, and the science complex. The project did actually work on a small scale, but anytime they did it on the larger scale, it failed. Eventually, we were born, and our mother passed away from the complications of that birth. With the love of his life gone, and the stresses from the failed attempts, our father lost all hope. He turned his back on the project and left to care for us. After his departure from the project, the Brotherhood of Steel withdrew their troops and protection, and the remaining scientists went their own ways, most of which ended up in Rivet City. Now, it turns out that after leaving both the Vault and us, our father returned to Dr. Lee, as Three Dog said he would, explaining that the project needed to be restarted. This project is the reason he left. Thanks to some recordings that I picked up earlier, we now know a little bit more about what's going on. It appears that late one night, he broke into the Overseer's office and hacked his way into the computer. While on the computer, he learned about a device known as a GECK, or Garden of Eden Creation Kit. For those of you who either didn't A, watch my Fallout 2 video, or B, have never played Fallout 3 before, let me just quickly gloss over what a GECK is. A GECK is essentially able to terraform and turn a wasteland into something habitable again. There you go. Anyway, our father, after learning about the GECK, knew that with a little bit of tweaking, he could get it to work with Project Purity, and thus found new hope and left the Vault to return to his work. Now, the only problem is he doesn't have a GECK or even know where to find one, but he knows a man who might. The creator, Dr. Braun. And with that critical piece of information, our father left the memorial building in which he was staying after he left Rivet City and headed to Vault 112. And now we know where to search next. The vault was tucked away in a little rundown shack that used to be once a mechanic's shop. Finding our way down into the vault wasn't any issue whatsoever. Fun fact, when I actually first played this game, I left the vault for the first time and did some exploring, accidentally stumbled upon this location, and accidentally skipped the entire story ahead to this point. I had no clue what was going on whatsoever. I had no idea. Anyway, once inside the vault, a robo-brain, which thinks we're a resident of the vault, directs us to a room filled with pods. Inside each pod is a person wearing the Vault 12 suit. These are the residents of the vault. The robo-brain then tells us to get inside one of these pods, and Vivian does what she's told and hops inside. As she begins to relax, a TV lowers in front of her and she drifts off to sleep. When she awakens, she finds herself in some sort of virtual reality world, and not only that, but we appear to be in the body of our younger self. A man approaches us and tells us that we should speak with Betty, and that Betty will be waiting for us. Completely unsure of what's going on right now, Vivian speaks with Betty. There's also a little doggy here. Hi, little fella. Anyway, Betty introduces herself and explains that she's happy to have found somebody new to play with, because she'd been getting bored. Betty then asks Vivian if she's interested in playing a game. Vivian declines, since not only is she trying to figure out what the heck is going on here, but where her father is. Betty laughs and tells Vivian that she's not allowed to say no to her request, and that if she wants to play a game, we must play her game. Vivian continues to refuse to play Betty's game, but Betty forces the game on Vivian by telling us that she wants to see a boy named Timmy cry. If we can't do that, then we'll be stuck here forever. Vivian's starting to put the pieces together. She knows for a fact that she's in some sort of virtual world, and that the people in it are 100% the residents outside, only they don't know that. In fact, they have no idea who they are, no idea about the bombs, the vault, or any virtual reality. Vivian explores this little world until she walks into a house that seems abandoned. Something seems really off about this house. It doesn't quite fit. After leaving the house, however, Vivian's stopped by an older woman who knows we don't belong here and tells Vivian that the suffering must end. This lady then goes on to explain that Betty is actually Braun and he's in control of this world. Braun is acting as a god and using this world for evil and twisted reasons, and won't let anybody go. However, Braun has some sort of failsafe terminal inside the very abandoned house we just left, and with that, the old lady just leaves. So now we have a few answers. Betty is Braun. Braun trapped not only us, the residents, and our father in here as well, wherever he is. And not only that, but the only way out is some sort of computer terminal. How we find that terminal is anybody's guess. Vivian goes back inside the house and starts to search around, but can only find some random objects around the house. After touching one of these items, a loud tone is heard. Curious, Vivian touches another object and two tones play. The first is a normal musical tone, but the second tone would sort of suggest incorrectness, if that makes sense, like something was wrong. Vivian quickly deduces that these tones are actually a sort of password, and the only tone we've heard, assuming the player character can't actually hear the background music that is Betty or Braun whistling. This tune is indeed the password to the failsafe terminal, and once entered, the console appears. What we can gather from this terminal is that Braun was contracted by Vault-Tec to help build this vault. More specifically, he was the creator of the virtual reality machine. However, Braun ended up getting bored with his duty as the Vault Overseer here and began to use his powers within this world to have a little fun. And how did he have fun? Well, he tortured the unaware inhabitants of Vault 112. He would kill them over and over again in different ways and realities, and this has actually been going on for 200 years. Braun really is evil in every sense of the word. However, we can free the trapped people here by activating the failsafe. Doing so will permanently end their lives of all the sealed residents of Vault 12, except Braun, that is, who, as Overseer, will be spared, trapped forever alone inside his creation. Vivian activates the failsafe. When exiting the house, the neighborhood has erupted into chaos as the inhabitants die. Braun, however, isn't too thrilled by any of his subjects dying. He yells at us for ruining everything, but Vivian doesn't care. Justice has been served. Braun then, like all good evil villains, explains everything. He explains that our father had actually come here and is in fact still here. He's actually the dog, trapped and unable to speak. After that, he just simply lets us out. Don't know why, he just does. One would think that he'd try to keep us here to, like, I don't know, mess around with us. Look, I don't know. I'm sure there's a reason for it, but anyway, he lets us out. When we awake and get the hell out of the pod as quickly as possible, our father thanks us for saving him, but asks what we're even doing here in the first place. Vivian explains that we had to leave the vault in search of him after the chaos broke out. He apologizes, but still thanks us. Besides, if it wasn't for us, he'd most likely have stayed trapped in that simulation forever. Still, it wasn't all for nothing. It turns out he really did get a chance to speak with Braun and learn that the Gek would indeed work for Project Purity. And now, with that knowledge, he must return to Dr. Lee in Rivet City. After that, Vivian and her father take a lovely father-daughter jog across the capital wasteland. Yep, just taking in the sights, getting to a few fights, just the normal wasteland jog sort of a deal. A long, silent wasteland jog. Just the two of us. Yep. Skip! Vivian and her father arrive back in Rivet City and relay the good news to Dr. Lee, who can't believe it. She admits that she had her doubts at first, but is willing to take a chance on James and Project Purity once again. James goes on to explain that to get the project working, they must find a working Gek, but for now, it would be best just to head over to the memorial building and get set up. After that, everybody packs up their things and journeys together across the wasteland to the Jefferson Memorial Building. Just out together for a relaxing walk across the wasteland. Just the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Just the 5 of us across the wasteland, just out for a leisurely stroll. Skip! Once inside the building, our father pulls us aside and explains how the Bible passage that our mother loved so much was actually the inspiration of Project Purity, and she dedicated her entire life to making it work. But not only that if she was around today, she'd be exceedingly proud of us, just as much as he is. After that, our father tells us that this place, after being abandoned for years, has fallen into a bit of disrepair, and we really need to get it all fixed up before the project can be started. And the only way to do that is some extreme house cleaning. That didn't sound right. I need some better music. Here we go. Extreme house cleaning. Yeah. There we go. That did it. Okay, perfect. Right. So, what we need to do is, replace some fuses, press some buttons, activate the mainframe, refill the flux fluid in the flux capacitor headlights, and of course, turn on a valve or two. Just simple things like that. However, while we're down inside a pipe, something happens. Some vertibirds land at the building, and a group of heavily armed, black-armored troopers start pouring out into the building. Our father, over the speakers, explains that he has no idea who they are or what they want, but tells everybody to remain calm and stay where they are. After a quick moment, however, he changes his tone once he realizes who it actually is. It's the Enclave. He tells Dr. Lee to lock the doors, and after that, silence. Vivian knows something bad is about to happen and returns inside the building as quickly as she can, zippity-zappitying her way past any and all Enclave soldiers. Eventually, she makes it back to the main room to find her father and one of the scientists are locked inside one of the rooms with the Enclave soldiers. A man in a brown, tan, beige, cream, khaki? A man in a trench coat of indeterminate color, of which the world's top scientists will run a few tests on and eventually get back to me on, stands inside the room along with his troops. The man demands to speak with the person in charge of the project. Our father speaks up, explaining that the Enclave have no right to be here and should leave. The man smiles and tells James to hand over all of his research immediately, and after he's done that, he's to assist the Enclave scientists after they have assumed control of the project. James tries to tell him that the project isn't even working yet, and as such, there's no research to be had. He's just wasting his time here. The man frowns, and with a stricter tone, tells our father he won't repeat himself again. James continues to try and defuse the situation by once again telling him that nothing's functioning, and even if it was, they'd have zero success so far with the project. But before our father can get another word in, the man draws his gun and shoots one of the scientists in the room, killing her instantly. The man smiles and suggests to James that it would be in his best interest if he complies, so nobody else gets hurt. Our father pauses for a moment as the situation truly sinks in. He then agrees to give the Enclave whatever they want. James then turns around to the control panel, explaining he'll just need a second to get the systems online. As he enters some sort of code into the control panel, he stops, looks at us and smiles. And just then, an explosion happens and everybody starts choking and dropping to the ground as lethal levels of radiation flood the room. Our father slowly makes his way closer to us, telling us to run, and then collapses on the ground, taking his final breath and passing away. Dr. Lee grabs Vivian and tells her that our father sacrificed himself to prevent the Enclave from getting their hands on the project and buying us a little time to escape. Before Vivian can get a word in, Dr. Lee continues to explain that there's some sort of underground tunnel that leads to safety, and if we are going to go, we have to go now. After that, Vivian, along with the others, fight their way past the Enclave soldiers in the tunnels to escape, and head to the Brotherhood of Steel's headquarters here in DC, the Citadel. When exiting the tunnels, the group approaches the Citadel. A Brotherhood member at the front gate tries to turn them away, But Dr. Lee barges past the guard and screams into an intercom. She calls for somebody named Lyons to open the door right now, and as soon as she finishes screaming, the massive metal door rises up, allowing all of us inside. Once inside, an older gentleman wearing a rather dapper robe approaches Dr. Lee, addressing her by name. Dr. Lee begs this man for help and tells him that not only did they finally figure out how to get Project Purity to work, but that the Enclave had attacked, drove everybody out, and now have full control of the building. And also that our father is dead. The gentleman tries to calm Dr. Lee down and grants everybody safety before turning to us and offering his condolences. This is Elder Lyons, father to Sarah Lyons, who we had met earlier, and leader of the Brotherhood of Steel here in DC. He is willing to help us with Project Purity and, more importantly, find a GEC to actually get the project working. And, of course, when the time comes, help us deal with the Enclave. For right now, he points us towards another member of the Brotherhood, a man named Scribe Rothschild. He will be able to help us locate a working GEC. Scribe Reginald Rothschild is a brilliant scientist in his own right, working tirelessly for the Brotherhood's efforts. He knew our father many years ago and respected him. After offering his condolences, Vivian asks Rothschild if it's possible to locate a GEC. Rothschild chuckles to himself for a brief moment and explains that he and many others aren't even sure if one exists. However, if we're so determined to find one, he will happily help. He explains that right now he himself is a little busy with another project that might actually bear fruit now that Dr. Lee is here. So instead, he grants us access to a pre-war computer that might have the information we seek. After that, Rothschild returns to working on his project. And what project is that exactly? How about a giant robot? That is a pretty cool project in my opinion. But anyway, I digress. Vivian gets to work searching the pre-war terminal for any information, and it turns out Vault 87 apparently was given one of these GECs. As for its location, well, Rothschild explains getting to it might prove a little bit of a challenge. Vault 87 is surrounded by lethal levels of radiation, so approaching it from the surface will be totally impossible. However, the vault is located near a place called Lamplight Caverns. This place, as the name suggests, might offer underground access to the vault, since most, if not all vaults, tend to be built underground. And with that, Vivian sets off across the wasteland once again, only slowed down every so often by the occasional super mutant, or Deathclaw, or, Enclave troops. Sadly, like all good road trips, this one must come to an end once Vivian reaches her destination of Lamplight Caverns, or, as it's now called, Little Lamplight. Little Lamplight is a small town built into the caverns, and what makes this particular town special is the entire thing is run by children. And these children hate adults, or Mungos as they call them, especially their leader, Mayor McCready. Now, McCready here isn't exactly thrilled to see us and just, and I quote, wants to shoot our head off. Well, I mean, he uses more colorful language than that, which I won't repeat since I know some kids are watching, but regardless, McCready knows all about the vault and explains that the monsters live inside. Big, green monsters that sort of look like people, only all wrong. We know what type of monster he means. He's referring to super mutants. Vivian asks if we can pass through Little Lamplight to gain access to the vault. McCready refuses, but after slinging a few insults at each other, in which Vivian tells him his face looks like a butt, McCready deems us worthy of gaining entrance to Little Lamplight. Now, Little Lamplight, as I mentioned before, is special since it's entirely run by only kids. After any child turns 16, the game sometimes says 18, but it is 16. After they turn 16, they're kicked out of Little Lamplight and sent to a place called Big Town, where a happy life awaits. And spoiler alert, but Big Town isn't such a great place. After passing through Little Lamplight and gaining access to Vault 87, Vivian can see it's a rundown mess, indeed filled to the brim with super mutants. However, this vault, like practically every vault, holds a dark secret. The people here had access to the FEV, because of course they did, and used it to experiment on their own people until eventually one of those test subjects broke free, killing the inhabitants and taking control of the vault. This test subject then went on to use the FEV to, of course, create more super mutants until eventually running out of the FEV. Vivian searches the horribly degraded rooms and halls of Vault 87 until she's stopped by a voice calling to her. It's coming from a super mutant locked inside a room. This super mutant introduces himself as Forks. He's a shy and rather likable fellow. Forks was actually one of the original Vault 87 inhabitants. However, after his exposure to the FEV, he kept his intelligence. As time went on, however, Forks was seen as a failure among the rest of the super mutants, and as such, they locked him inside a test chamber, only opening the door to beat him. His story is actually a rather sad one, but Forks himself is nothing short of a nice guy, and Vivian takes a liking to him immediately. Forks asks Vivian why she'd come to such a place like Vault 87, and she replies telling him that she was looking for a Gek. Forks lights up and exclaims that not only is the Gek here, but he knows exactly where it is and offers to get it for her. Forks goes on to tell Vivian that its location is deep within the vault in a sealed room with lethal levels of radiation. However, since he himself is a super mutant, he'd have no problem entering said room to get the Gek. But we have to let him out of the room first. Vivian has always been able to see the good in people and can clearly tell that Forks is nothing but a beacon of kindness who only wants to do good things for people. Vivian lets Forks out of his imprisonment, not because she needs help, but because it's the right thing to do. Forks is genuinely touched by Vivian's kindness and happy to be free. He not only keeps his word, but personally escorts Vivian across the vault and to the radiated chambers. He stops, turns, and warns her not to go any further. He will continue forwards from here and return shortly with the Gek. And with that, Forks continues on alone, and after a short moment, returns with the Gek in hand. Vivian thanks him and slowly makes her way out of the vault, but before she can reach the exits, Vivian hears a beeping sound. She turns and is blinded and hit with some sort of pulse, knocking her to the ground. As she regains her sight, she watches Enclave troops enter the room, followed by our old evil pal, Trenchcoat of Indeterminate Color Man. He leans over Vivian and orders his troops to take the Gek and place us on his vertibird. After that, Vivian loses consciousness. Vivian awakens as Trenchcoat of Indeterminate Color Man smiles and welcomes her back to the land of consciousness. He tells us that his name is Colonel Augustus Autumn, but let's be real here, we all know his true name. That, and I lack the sweet modding capabilities to rename him here. If somebody, anybody, is actually able to do it, please, for the love of sugar bums, please send me a picture over to my Twitter, because that would be insanely funny. I mean, at least to me it would be. Anyway, Colonel Trenchcoat of Indeterminate Color Man brags that the good guys won and that they're just wrapping up loose ends. After that, he demands Vivian tell him the code to get the purifier working. Vivian, of course, gives him the correct code and is thanked by being shot to death. The end. Fallout 3's main story upon launch was criticized for its abrupt and bleak ending. IGN gave it a -2 out of 10, calling it basically a Pokemon game without enough water. Big L for gaming as a whole. Eurogamer was even harsher, saying, and I quote, "Bethesda was trying far too hard to recreate the shock ending of the first game. They aimed too high, and like Icarus, got too close to the sun and got a game over. This is a dark day for video games as a whole. Shame on you, Bethesda." I know you were all waiting for me to give my thoughts on this controversy. I know it's the popular thing to hate the ending of this game, but I refuse to chase trends. I believe it's important to speak the truth, and gosh darn it, that's exactly what I'm gonna do. I think this ending was a brave step forward in the gaming industry. I'm sick of these happy ending tropes. I think we need more evil guy wins tropes. It's bold, refreshing, and it tickles my pickle like nobody else can. I will proudly stand on this hill and die on it if that's the will of Todd Howard. Hashtag Evil Fallout for the win. Okay, I'm done with this joke now. I'm sorry. Okay, what really happens is Vivian, filled with anger, stands defiant just like her father did before her, and refuses to give over the code. Colonel Trenchcoat of Indeterminate Color is about to torture us, but a voice from some sort of intercom stops him, ordering him to leave the room. The Colonel reluctantly does as ordered and leaves. The voice is familiar to Vivian. She'd heard all the broadcasts across the wasteland, from floating iBots to people's radios. She knows this voice belongs to the President of the Enclave, John Henry Eden. Eden tells Vivian that he apologizes for old Trenchy's grumpy attitude and explains that he'd like to meet with us, face to face. He then sets us free of our restraints, tells us where to find our gear, and opens the cell door. Vivian knows she can't trust this Enclave group, but takes her chances. After all, it's the only chance she's got right now. As she leaves her cell, Eden makes a base-wide announcement that he has personally given us safe passage and for all guards to stand down. Vivian then makes her way through the rather impressive base. Credit where credit is due, the Enclave do have some advanced tools at their disposal. After about halfway to Eden's office, the base-wide speakers crackle to life once again. This time, it's Colonel Trenchcoat of Indeterminate Color. He orders his troops to disregard Eden's earlier directive and now to shoot us on sight. Vivian, upon hearing this, readies her best energy weapon and E1M1s her way across the base, zippity-zappitying any Enclave soldiers brave enough to stand in her way. Eventually, the base itself splits in two, with troops loyal to Eden and troops loyal to our old pal Trenchimus Codemus Maximus killing each other. Eventually, Vivian makes her way to the presidential office and now stands face to monitor with President Eden. Yes, you heard that right. President John Henry Eden is actually an AI. And speaking of reveals, I never did clarify how exactly Colonel Trenchcoat survived the radiation that killed everybody else. It turns out that right as the explosion happened, he injected himself with some sort of radiation blocker or something. I actually don't ever think it's stated of what he injects, but anyway, thanks to that, he's able to survive the lethal radiation. You can even see him do it in the footage, but I got a terrible angle of it. But I promise he does stab himself with something. It's a blink and you'll miss it moment. Anyway, back to the story. Eden explains that the country is at a crossroads. He agrees that the water purifier should be switched on and should be allowed to do as advertised. Bring fresh and clean water to the wasteland. However, even with clean water, the country can't prosper and regain its once great status. Oh, no. What it needs is something more. What it needs is to be rid of super mutants, and in fact, all mutated monstrosities across the wasteland. And that includes ghouls, deathclaws, mole rats, mirelurks, radroaches, Gary, fox, and whatever the holy heck this abomination of science is supposed to be. But it doesn't stop there. It includes all humans as well. After all, everybody across the capital wasteland, heck, the entire world even, is mutated in some way, shape, or form. Of course, Eden doesn't let that little nugget of information slip. Now, some of you might be asking, wait, hold on, if this was the Enclave's goal all along, why stop Trenchcoat from interrogating us earlier? Why, after Eden's orders to grant us safe passage to him, did Pretty Fly for an indeterminate trenchcoat colored guy go against orders? And perhaps the biggest, most important question of all, Lycan, should I have a pizza for dinner or like a healthy salad? Look, these are all good questions to ask, and I'll do my very best to answer them for you. Let's start with the Eden trenchcoat debacle. If you can actually believe it, our good trenchcoat wearing friend here is actually the good guy in this debate of ethics. You see, Eden, as we just talked about, pretty much wants to taint the water supply and kill, well, everything. Trench Bro doesn't want that at all. He actually wants to just simply turn on the purifier and let it do what it was built to do, and establish the Enclave as the heroes who saved the wasteland. That's it. He just wants credit. I bet you weren't expecting that one, were you? Okay, well, maybe you were, but most definitely not you, Kenneth. Aha! Yeah, you weren't expecting me to single you out there, were you? Or know you by name? Well, we, and by we I of course mean me, which is actually an upside down we, do our best here at Lycanite TV to not only strive to write the most engaging stories and edit our videos with just that little touch of jankiness you all know and love, but we aim to really touch base with you, and get to know you, move in with you, and eat all of your labeled lunches. We want to make you feel like family, because here at Lycanite TV, you're not just a comment beneath a YouTube video. You're a person. I wonder how many people named Kenneth just got freaked out. I like to imagine that somebody is like watching this video play in the background while they're like, I don't know, playing a game or, I don't know, doing their taxes or whatever. And then the moment they heard their name, like did like a double take or something. I just like to imagine that. Anyway, the answer to the final question is pizza. Treat yourself, pal. You deserve it. Anyway, back to the story. Why? I do this every video. Oh. Anyway, Vivian refuses Eden's request to taint the water supply. Surprise. Surprise! Surprise, mother trucker! Oh, God. Okay. All right. Okay, let's go. All right. Whew. Vivian refuses Eden's request to taint the water supply, but President Eden gives her a vial filled with a strain of the FEV, which once injected into the water purifier will taint the water, just in case she changes her mind, which she won't. After that, Vivian has had just about enough of this Enclave madness, and through her vast intellect is able to convince Eden that he himself might be a mutant. You see, he's AI, but he was never created to do what he does now. He mutated himself from his original programming and thus is a type of mutant just like the rest of us. After processing that for a quick moment, Eden agrees with Vivian's logic, opens the exit to the Enclave base, and sets the self-destruction. Vivian then runs for her life across the Enclave base, and when I say runs, I of course mean has a casual, peaceful afternoon stroll. She fights her way past any Enclave soldier, now backed up by President Eden's robotic death machines, until she eventually reaches the giant metal bunker door. She then steps outside to find Fawkes, of all people, killing Enclave troops with a laser minigun. I guess he wanted to emulate his, favorite hero. Hey, yeah. As Fawkes kills the last of the ground troops, a few Enclave vertibirds with Trenchcoat and the Gek aboard escape into the distance. Fawkes is overcome with joy when he sees us and tells Vivian that he watched the Enclave troops kidnap us from Vault 87 and followed them back to their base in an effort to rescue us. After that, Fawkes asks if he can join us on our wasteland adventure, and Vivian agrees. The moment only made more awesome as the Enclave base, Raven Rock, explodes in a spectacular display. Vivian can't help but jump around in excitement, and after a bunker door blasts off its hinges and crashes into the ground, Vivian begins to think that standing next to a massive explosion might not be the smartest of ideas, and heads back to the Brotherhood. It's time to take back Jefferson Memorial Building and Project Purity. Once back at the Citadel, Vivian finds Elder Lyons, Sarah Lyons, and Scribe Rothschild all arguing. Sarah wants to send the Lyons Pride in to attack the Enclave troops at the Memorial Building while they aren't expecting it. Her father and Rothschild both think that's a terrible idea, more so Rothschild, who explains that without the Gek, the Enclave can't really do anything. Vivian clears her throat and interrupts. There you go, a little bit of sound effects there for you. Elder Lyons welcomes her back and asks if she was successful at Vault 87. Vivian tells the Elder that she did indeed find the Gek, but now the Enclave has it and are installing it right now. Elder Lyon quickly changes his tunes and orders an all-out attack against the Enclave at the Memorial Building. Sarah readies her troops for battle, making us an honorary member of the Lyons Pride, and Rothschild prepares his life work and Brotherhood's ultimate weapon, Liberty Mother Truckin' Prime. Oh yeah, that's right, pals. That giant robot we could see before is about to be switched on and unleashed upon the Enclave, and we get a front row seat. Oh yeah. Vivian suits up, and along with Fawkes, the ragtag laser blasting duo exits the Citadel and joins the troops on the front line. This time, Vivian takes a page from Fawkes' book and goes full auto with her very own laser Gatling gun. And now, it's time for some E1M1. The Enclave doesn't stand a chance. After that amazing display of sheer dominance on the battlefield, Vivian, alongside with Fawkes and Sarah, make their way inside the Memorial Building and confront XX Technicolor Trenchcoat 69XX. Vivian, in spite of everything, tries to reason with him, explaining that the building is surrounded. he's already lost. Trenchcoat begs to differ. He knows all he has to do is activate Project Purity, and the Wasteland will hail him and the Enclave as heroes. The citizens will then flock to them for water, and America's future will be bright. Vivian continues to convince him that it's all over. The Brotherhood has already won, and that the Enclave as a whole is now finished. Trenchcoat tries to argue, tries to hold on to the hope, but the doubt has already set in. He no longer believes in his own words. Vivian promises just to let him go if he surrenders. Colonel Trenchcoat of indeterminate color relents and raises the white flag. He and the last of the troops lower their heads in defeat and withdraw from the memorial building. However, the job isn't done. Not yet. As the trio approach the water purifier, the intercom crackles to life and Dr. Lee speaks. She explains that she'd been keeping an eye on the sensor readings since the attack and noticed something was damaged during the fight, either from the attack itself or possible sabotage. The pressure is building rapidly within the facility, and if somebody doesn't activate the purifier right now, it's going to explode, taking the GEC, the project, and the building with it. If we don't stop it now, our father's sacrifice, no, everybody's sacrifice and hard work, along with any hope to restore the wasteland, will be over. It will have all been for nothing. There is one problem. The room with the control panel is filled with radiation. Anybody who goes inside won't be coming back out again. Sarah and Vivian look at each other, both knowing somebody isn't leaving here, but both ready to do what's right. Vivian doesn't flinch. She smiles and tells Sarah that she'll be the one to turn on the purifier. Sarah thanks her on behalf of everybody, and Vivian steps into the room, the radiation already beginning to take its toll. She looks at that control panel and enters the code only she knows. 216. As the machine whirls to life and the radiation levels spike, Vivian drops to the ground, her final moments filled not with sadness, but hope, as she watches the first of the water purify in the tank. As she closes her eyes for the last time, she thinks back to her father and her mother's favorite Bible passage. I am Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end. I will give unto him that is athirst of the fountain of the water of life freely. Revelation 21:6. The end. This was the original ending to Fallout 3. The ending all who played it for the first time experienced, unless of course you sent Sarah in which case you got the bad ending. It was one of hope, sacrifice. You were meant to be moved, shed a tear perhaps. Under normal circumstances, I would save the thoughts on story segment for later, but Fallout 3 is special, at least I think it is. You see, if you didn't pick up on it yet, this is not the ending any longer. 7 months after the release of Fallout 3, Bethesda released Broken Steel, a DLC that continues the main story of Fallout 3. But I never had the DLC. In fact, I played the DLC for the first time about 2 or 3 years ago when I bought the Game of the Year edition to Platinum Fallout 3 on my PlayStation 3. I don't want to waste your time. This is the make it or break it moment for many of you. How did I feel about this ending? I'll do my best to explain it, but I'm no fool. If you already hate the ending, you'll always hate the ending, and if you love it, you'll love it. I'm not here to change minds. I'm only here to share memories and thoughts. First, let me address the elephant in the room. Is the ending silly? Yes, it is. Everybody, and I do mean everybody, always brings up forks, or the ghouls or the robots. Mostly for some reason, yeah, it's always mostly forks. Anyway, if he's with you, he's a super mutant. He'll have no problem flipping switches and pressing buttons, even with lethal radiation. It's true. Very true. I won't even remotely deny it. This is a massive oversight and should have been addressed before it even made it to the programming stage or release. However, when I first played this game, I wasn't thinking about forks. Heck, I actually had Dogmeat with me in the final battle. And when you turn to him, the player simply bids Dogmeat a fond farewell, which Dogmeat whines sadly in reply to. I was wrapped up in the moment. The story had hit its fever pitch and I was on board. I, like Vivian, didn't think twice. I entered the room, input the code, and made the ultimate sacrifice. It was my ending. A good ending. I was satisfied. Still, I'm not dumb. Well, maybe I am a little bit, but I know you aren't me, and I'm not you. We're all different, and yes, I've heard people vent their anger and disappointment with Bethesda and the Forks issue. No companion will go inside for you. It's only you or Sarah. Listen, the fact is, for this final battle, no companions should have been allowed to join you. Well, maybe Dogmeat, since it doesn't matter that you can't send him in anyways. If nobody could follow you from the very beginning, and it was programmed to just be you and Sarah, the moment the mission starts, the whole damn controversy wouldn't have existed. And what about the ability to play after the ending? What about it? Fallout 1 didn't let you play after the ending. Hold on, let me finish. Was it a problem for some back in the day? Yeah, 100%. For me as well. However, there are many video games out there that don't let you continue after the ending. This isn't the be-all end-all of bad video game development. The story is over. It's done. Smile. Could Bethesda have programmed in the ability to continue? Yes, sure, of course. They could have, and it would have been fine. Yeah. If Bethesda was worried that players would choose the good ending, make the ultimate sacrifice, and then after the credits is still alive and continuing to live, if it would just ruin the game or send players into some sort of mad fury in which they try to shove a TV remote control up their butts, they'd be wrong. It would have been fine to just continue after the ending, and yeah, it should have been programmed in. You and I are smart enough to accept the flawed logic of dying and coming back to life to continue playing like nothing happened. At least, that's what I think anyway. For those of you who are still listening and haven't already clicked the dislike button, left a nasty comment, and vanished, I want to say one more thing. At the end of the day, no matter what choice Bethesda made, can't we all agree that it's just a video game? A video game with a story to be told. A game in which we romp around the wasteland, shooting giant ants, blasting aliens in outer space, and have some mysterious stranger to pop into existence, kill our foe, and pop back out of existence. A game made to relax, have fun, forget the world. A game to make people like you and I smile. No game on Earth is flawless. Each has their own unique quirks. Can't we all agree video games are just fun? Let's move on to Broken Steel and the last of the story, and then my final thoughts for the story once again. Okay. Oh. Vivian gasps awake and sits up in a cold sweat. Elder Lyons is startled at Vivian's sudden outburst. He's old and, much like Tolfdir, can't handle surprise outbursts or moments of being interrupted.
Well, I'm quite sure I've never been interrupted like this before. The audacity.
Elder Lion calms us down and tells us that after turning on the purifier, some sort of energy pulse, not radiation, knocked both Sarah and I out. Elder Lyons was of course covering for his daughter and protecting her battle-hardened warrior image, because had he said the truth, which was that after watching Vivian's extreme act of heroism and being overcome with patriotism, she just passed out and slipped into a coma, I think had people heard the truth, she might have lost a few Nuka-Cola points with the Brotherhood troops, so... Anyway, the good news is Project Purity worked. The water in the tidal basin is now fresh and clean. Not only that, but the Enclave has been thrown into total disarray following the events, and to top it all off, Elder Lyons makes us a full knight of the Brotherhood of Steel. Everything seems perfect. Still, the Elder asks if we'd be interested in helping mop up the remains of the Enclave forces, to which we accept. Vivian speaks to Rothschild to get her new assignment, and he explains that the Enclave was believed to be thrown into disarray, but that wasn't the case. Wait, what? No, didn't Elder just tell it? Okay, you know what? Never mind. Anyway, the Enclave has a few remaining outposts across the wasteland that need to be wiped out. One of these outposts is a place called Rockland. Now, getting into this base has proven a little bit to... Excuse me. Can I help you? Can't you see what I'm doing? Of course, yeah, you just walk away, alright. Some people, am I right? Anyway, where was I? Oh yeah, the Enclave outpost. So, the Brotherhood has had some trouble taking out the base, but one of its members, Paladin Tristan, has found a place nearby to launch an assault, with backup from Liberty Mother Truckin' Prime. Oh yeah, giant robot extraordinaire. Man, the Enclave are gonna see Liberty Prime busting out his best swag moves, and they're gonna be all like, oh damn, here comes the Mac Daddy Robo Reaper himself, and then Liberty Prime's gonna be all like, dead or alive, creep, I'm gonna control alt delete you. And then they're gonna be like, oh, and then he's gonna be all like, and the Brotherhood's gonna be all like lining up for autographs and photos, and oh man, it's gonna be just the... What the hell was that? Okay, so it turns out, after searching the Enclave outpost, that they have some sort of secret weapon. Vivian gathers whatever information she can and delivers it to Rothschild. Sadly, Rothschild is taking the loss of his life's work kinda hard, and Vivian can't blame the guy. However, he is able to figure out that the Enclave have access to an orbital satellite, which they used to rain down those missiles from space, destroying Prime. Now, skipping ahead slightly here, we also learn that the Enclave has not only another main base of operations, but that they were able to control those satellites from said base. And if that wasn't bad enough, this new base that they have is actually mobile. Paladin Tristan orders us to do a lone assault. Vivian is to navigate her way through some old metro tunnels, because of course it's metro tunnels. She is able to battle her way through without too much hassle, except that somehow the ghouls have learned a new battle technique which gives them the ability to vibrate so fast that they're able to break the laws of physics and dodge bullets and lasers. And if that wasn't bad enough, they can then do like a rubber band snap out of danger. It's insane. However, this isn't Vivian's first rodeo. She knows how to handle crazy stuff like this. Sort of. After making it through the metro, Paladin Tristan then orders her to carry out the second order of her lone assault across Adams Air Force Base, while the Brotherhood troops carry out their frontal assault to distract the Enclave forces. Vivian is then to reach the control tower, where she can send a signal to the mobile headquarters platform via a terminal to open its rear access hatch. Did that make sense? I don't think that made sense. Oh well. Once that's done, she is to battle her way once again across the Air Force Base, leaving Forks behind to fight his own war, learning how to use stairs. Just kidding. Forks can come along. Anyway, after reaching the mobile platform, Vivian sneaks aboard and locates the satellite controls. It's hard work dealing with the soldiers inside this mobile base, but after reprogramming the entire base's robotic army to turn and attack their Enclave masters, things get a little easier for Vivian. Not that she really needed the help, mind you, it's just nice to have help, you know what I mean? Eventually, Vivian finds the control center and locates the terminal used to control the orbital satellite. Vivian now has the power of a space god. She can choose where to rain down missiles. She can choose to destroy the Brotherhood's headquarters, the Citadel. She can choose to stick it to her dead parents and wipe out their legacy, Project Purity. How about undoing her choice to disarm the nuclear bomb in the center of town? She could rain down a space bombardment on Megaton. If, however, you have some sort of thing for Megaton, but still want to wipe a city off the map, then say goodbye to Rivet City. Or, of course, Vivian could and should choose the very thing she came here to blow up, the Enclave mobile base. Vivian does indeed pick to blow up the Enclave base, but she did think about Rivet City at least a little bit. Bloody Rivet City. With the target picked and the countdown beginning, Vivian and Forks make their way outside and onto a vertibird landing platform. Soon, a vertibird carrying troops comes down to pick us up, and look who they sent, our good old pal Colonel Trenchcoat. I'm kidding, it's Sarah Lyons. It's Sarah Lyons. She woke up from her energy pulse-induced coma. We all know the truth, though. Anyway, Sarah comes to pick up Vivian and Forks, and the team lifts off. But not before the pilot tells the troops that he's going to set the vertibird down at a safe distance so everybody can watch the orbital bombardment, and I mean, Sarah is just... look at that face. She is happy as can be. That right there is pure excitement. Oh yeah. The Lion's Pride, along with Sarah and Vivian, stand atop a building and watch the missiles rain down upon the remaining Enclave headquarters. It was quite the show. So much so, Vivian jumped up and down in joy. After all is said and done, Vivian, Sarah, and Forks return to the Citadel, where Elder Lyons awaits. He tells us how proud he is of us and thanks Vivian on behalf of not only the entire Brotherhood of Steel, but the entire Capital Wasteland as well. And with that, Vivian's Wasteland adventure finally comes to an end. The end. Broken Steel does as advertised. You get to continue playing after the end of the game, get a boost to the level cap, a few new perks, quests, locations to explore. Overall, you'll extend your Wasteland adventure and see the effect your choice had on the Wasteland. I had a good enough time with this game. However, one thing I didn't want to do was more metro tunnels. If Fallout 3 doesn't lack something, it's the friggin' metros, I'm telling you. Bethesda went to a lot of trouble creating new locations, especially the large and more or less open Air Force base. It would have strained the hardware at the time, but I would have loved, instead of going through the metros, like, to join the frontal assault. I mean, I know Prime is gone, but to repeat that attack, the one from the, going to the memorial building, that would have been really nice. Just imagine, like, the vertibirds zooming around the Air Force base and, explosions and troops dying and stuff like that. I just think it would have been really cool. There is also one tiny thing that bugged me. I actually skipped over the entirety of it in the story, but it's between Liberty Prime's destruction and going through the metro tunnels. You're sent off by Paladin Tristan to get a Tesla coil to power a new powerful Tesla cannon. This cannon gets its own mission, complete with achievements if you're playing on console, but it never really gets brought back once you get it for like any real reason, It would have been, I would have loved it if that is how you get inside the mobile base, just blowing a giant hole in the side of the thing or something, or it's like attached to a tank or a vertibird or something. That would have been cool, but as it stands, it's just a new weapon for the game. It's not even really that great, to be completely honest with you. I mean, it is powerful, but it's just, I don't know, it's just not that great, I know how it all sounds. I know it kind of sounds like I wasn't a fan of this add-on, DLC, expansion pack, whatever you want to call it, but I was a fan. Yes, it's a little on the short side, but as I said, being able to see your endgame choice begin to bear fruit, that's pretty awesome in my book. It might even make you begin to question if you did the right thing or not. For example, and I might be overthinking this, I tend to do that, but hear me out. If you purify the water, you begin to see that the Brotherhood has begun to brand water all over the wasteland, The Brotherhood is in full control of the water supply. The Brotherhood is the heroes of the wasteland. The Brotherhood is shaping the future of the capital wasteland. Who else wanted that exact same thing? Trenchcoat did. The Enclave is evil, sure, but it still makes you pause and think, Did you pick the right side? Broken Steel was a decent add-on to Fallout 3. Now, let's discuss the entire story. Again. Oh, okay. I remember playing Fallout 3 for the first time so clearly. I remember exploring the wasteland, talking to people, questing my butt off, and finally finishing the whole game and starting all over again, but this time doing an evil playthrough. I remember it all. As I said in the introduction, Fallout 3, in my eyes, was great. Flawed, yes, but great nonetheless. And I stick by that, but I did say flawed, and I'm sure you picked up on that, and that is what I want to expand on. It's okay to disagree with me. I'm sure a lot will. Fallout 3 tore the fan base in two, and I completely understand why that happened. I'm right there with you. Starting Fallout 3 is fine. Growing up in Vault 101, the mystery of your father leaving, and your forced eventual escape, it's a fantastic start. And then the entire game slaps anybody who played the first two games, more specifically the second, in the face with a dead fish. As soon as you leave the vault and walk into Springvale, that's the town just outside of Megaton, as soon as you walk there, you'll see an iBot floating back and forth, broadcasting the Enclave radio station. The moment I heard the Enclave was still active and were in still some sort of power, actively farting around the capital wasteland, I knew exactly what the hell was going on. If you've never played Fallout 3 before, and this is just so happened to be your first game in the series, chances are this will have no impact on you, your adventure, or any hints at the story. I, like I said, for both of these playthroughs, was fresh off of Fallout 2, and even if I wasn't, like if I had still played Fallout years ago, that moment right there will no doubt have triggered the exact same thought, and that thought is, really? Again? The same almost happens with the Brotherhood of Steel. It was a little jarring to meet them. Sure, the Brotherhood isn't evil per se, but they have, they were out there with their own goals. They take things by force and any technology they could get their hands on, and they were practically isolationists, think back to Fallout 1, for example. They more or less sent the player to their death, and they were shocked that you even succeeded. Think how much you had to twist the Brotherhood Elders' arms to even go ahead and attack the military base. They wouldn't even listen to one of their own, let alone just send a scout party to check it out. It was all done in secret because you, the player, were expendable. Now think back to Fallout 2. The Enclave almost wiped the Brotherhood out. Listen, before you attack me, for not knowing my deep Fallout lore, let me just say that, yes, all of this might be hand-waved, away by Bethesda, or actually had some sort of lore reason, but just for me, without this knowledge, the tonal shift was jarring, like I said. The Brotherhood felt like, they, oddly enough, felt like wasteland paladins, They exuded this aura of holiness, the yin to the Enclave's yang, so to speak. The Enclave remained the same, evil. And while on the topic of the Enclave, do I really need to bring up President Eden's ultimate plan? I guess I do, just in case you didn't watch the Fallout 2 video, but in short, it is the exact same plan. Use a mutated version of the FEV to kill everybody. The only difference is it wasn't airborne. Now, this time it's in the water, and they even brought back the Gek. Sorry, I'm getting slightly upset. I shouldn't be doing that. The point I'm trying to make here is that while the story itself is good, fun, and engaging, it still has these elements that poke and prod at you. Again, I need to hammer home the fact that everything I just said was not an issue for anybody who didn't play the first two Fallout games. The fact of the matter is, I actually know that to be true. Kids in my school who played Fallout 3, I remember asking them if any of them played the first two, and I was just met with blank stares. Mostly because nobody liked me, but still, they were surprised that there was even two Fallout games before this, besides the fact that it's called Fallout 3. People on forums I visited praised the game and also had never played the earlier titles. Or they honestly just didn't care and enjoyed Fallout 3 for what it is on its own merit. I know it's hard to believe, but that's how I feel about Fallout 3's story. It's flawed, but taken on its own merit, I enjoyed my time with it, despite all of those things. Now, that brings me back around to the ending. We've seen the original ending and the Broken Steel ending. I won't go over what I've said already, but I did leave something out for this very moment. I wasn't a fan of them undoing my ending. I was sucked into the moment. I knew what I had to do, said goodbye to Dogmeat, and sacrificed myself without a second thought. For me, it was a powerful moment. It's the mark of a good game when you actually feel something. You feel the weight of your choices. I know, not a lot of people feel the way I do. And maybe that's just because I'm not looking hard enough around the internet, but all I've ever heard especially over the past few years is just the hate for the ending. Hate that they couldn't send the super mutant or the ghoul or the robot companion in. And I agree. I truly do. I agree and fully understand the hate, even though I said I wouldn't repeat myself. I still wanted to say that Bethesda shouldn't have even remotely let you take any companion with you. They could have made up any reason, or hell, just have a third damn choice, like Broken Steel lets you do. And if the player picked that choice, a third ending plays. It shouldn't have... Sorry, I had to hold back the Australian in me. It shouldn't have freaking mattered what the player picked. Sacrifice, make another do it, or let a companion immune to the radiation do it. 3 endings. You die, Sarah dies, or everybody lives and you were smart enough to think ahead. Neutral, bad, good. And if you chose to sacrifice yourself, it just should have let you continue playing. Like I said, nobody would have screamed that their immersion was ruined and then tried jamming a remote control up their butts in anger. It was and is an oversight and should not have happened. Simple. For me, it hurts more hearing the anger towards the game for the ending. I know so many people who label Fallout 3 as total garbage for no other reason than forks can't press button. To me, that's sad if that's all you're basing the entire game on. But it hurts even more to have Bethesda undo your choice by allowing you to survive, by saying, nah, it was never radiation, it was actually just energy pulse, bro. And on top of that, Broken Steel starts to raise a few questions about the Enclave. Like, for my example, why in the hell didn't they just launch the missile strike at the Brotherhood the moment they saw Prime strutting his stuff towards the memorial building? Or shoot him? Why even chill inside an underground bunker while you have a sweet moving fortress? But, aside from that, the fact they charged you for the privilege to continue playing, that is the worst part. I know chances are I'm gonna ruffle some feathers here today, and I apologize for that. I really do. I know it won't stop anyone from downvoting or calling me stupid or whatever, but for whatever it's worth, I am sorry. We could sit here all day nitpicking on what Bethesda did wrong, or the lore reasons, or why things work or don't, or the flaws in my own arguments. But at the end of the day, my goal is only to look at both sides of the issue and hopefully come to some sort of understanding. But that isn't how the internet works. That isn't how some people think. Some will hate the return of the Enclave, some won't even notice, some will hate the Brotherhood, some won't even notice, some will hate the ending, and some will love it. Nothing I say, no matter how well I could ever say it, will change how you feel. I don't want to change how you feel. You're unique. This video is just me talking openly and honestly about my thoughts about Fallout 3. I return for a third time. Fallout 3, in my eyes, was great. Flawed, yes, but great nonetheless. And on that note, let's keep talking more about Fallout 3 after I quickly go pee and grab something to drink. Oh god. Cue the dun-dun thing, the scene transition. Vivian was out exploring the wasteland, mostly looking for bobbleheads instead of looking for her father. I mean, can you really blame her? Have you seen those little guys? Ah, look at them. Anyway, her addiction started back in Vault 101 when she swiped one from her father's desk. So I guess if you really stop and think about it, it's really all his fault, that she's out here in this predicament. But anyway, while exploring, she suddenly stumbles upon a car wreck or some strange vehicle. Vivian had never seen anything like it before, and when she got closer, well, words fail to describe what really happened next. She was on some sort of table with strange creatures surrounding her. They made strange sounds to each other, and they were operating on her. And just as a drill started to go up her nostril and drill her brain, she blacked out and awoke in panic, trapped in a room with another person. The woman introduced herself as Soma, and it seems she's been here for a while. Soma explains that these creatures were aliens, yes, real aliens, and Vivian was now aboard their ship. However, Soma and Vivian weren't the only ones. Apparently, there were more people here as well, each locked away in their own cells. The whys and the hows of the situation are best left unexplained. One thing is clear. Both ladies wanted to escape, and they'll need each other's help to do so. Soma has a plan. She wants to fake a fist fight by having a real fist fight in order to draw the attention of the alien guards. Once inside the cell to break up the real fake fight, both ladies will then turn on the guards and escape the cell. Now, maybe it was the drill they shoved up Vivian's nose talking, but she had to admit, this was the greatest plan she had ever heard. What could go wrong? Soma and Vivian locked and loaded their fists of fury and reenacted their favorite scenes from Fight Club. The alien guards eventually tried to break up the fight, giving the two a chance to turn the tables and escape. Once free, and now armed, the two run around the alien spaceship, trying to find a way off of it, and it seems hopeless until they find a little girl locked in a cell. This is Sally, and she's oddly calm about everything going on here. In fact, one might say she's having a fantastic time, actually. Still, she wants to get out of her cell, and even offers to help the pair. With no other choice, Soma and Vivian agree to help Sally. Sally explains that the only way to shut off power to the cells, and even progress forward for that matter, is to cause an overload of the power supply by shutting off the coolant. The task is extremely easy. 3, 2, 1, and blamco mac and cheese. Now free from her cell, Sally keeps to her word and offers to help the two escape. Sadly, Soma believes Three's a crowd, or doesn't like kids. It's hard to say either way. Soma tells Vivian that she's going to stay behind for now. Sally explains that the only way off the ship is to reach the top of the ship. Up there is the control room. It's the only way to control the ship. So Vivian and Sally run up and down corridor after corridor, blasting aliens and doing their best to stay frosty. It takes a while, a long while, but the two eventually find the teleportation platform to the control room. But there's a slight problem. The aliens figured out what was going on and shut down the platform. And just as Vivian begins to lose hope of ever collecting all the bobbleheads back in home in the wasteland, Sally has an idea and takes off running. Sally leads Vivian to a cryostasis room filled with all sorts of people. While this is impressive on its own, this wasn't the reason Sally came here. In one of these pods is an astronaut, complete with spacesuit. Sally wants to open his pod and recruit him to our cause, because with his help, he'll be able to go outside the ship and switch the teleporter back on. Now, maybe it was the drill they shoved up Vivian's nose talking, but she had to admit that this was the greatest plan she had ever heard. Vivian walked over to the stasis control panel, but since she can't understand any of this amazing alien technology, she just presses all the boutons and all the stasis pods open. Each pod cracks open, venting some sort of gas, and slowly, one by one, each person wakes up from their slumber. All but one, the astronaut. The poor guy didn't survive the reawakening. But, ever the fountain of hope and ideas, Sally pulls Vivian aside and asks that, with the guy now dead, it's up to Vivian herself to put the spacesuit on, walk out into space, and activate the elevator. Now, maybe it was the drill they shoved up Vivian's nose talking, but she had to admit that this was the greatest plan she had ever heard. Before suiting up, however, Vivian takes a moment to talk with all the people who are now free from their stasis. There's Toshiro, a Japanese samurai from Earth's very distant past. Vivian can't understand a word he's saying, but she likes him anyways. Next is Paulson, a Wild West rancher who is taken by aliens alongside his wife and child. Sadly, he hasn't seen them since they were taken aboard, and now wants nothing more than to kill every single alien on board this ship. Vivian likes his style. Finally, there's Elliot. He was a medic in the Great War stationed in Anchorage, Alaska before the bombs fell. He and his fellow troops were taken by the aliens. When it comes to Elliot, Vivian has no strong feelings one way or the other. Oh, and also, Soma is back to join the ragtag group. She still believes three's a crowd, but she really enjoys being around 5 people or more, so, I mean, she's down for whatever, you know? With a great plan in mind, Vivian suits up and makes one small leap for mankind. She slowly makes her way outside of the ship, watching aliens run around below her, and eventually presses all the buttons she can find and activates the teleporter. After that, she heads back inside the spaceship. Vivian meets back up with the group, and for the first time really takes her situation in. I mean, yeah, she was just out in space and is on an alien spaceship now, but look at this. It really is impressive, and really makes you think, you know? Sally shakes Vivian out of her daze and says that the control room isn't far away from here, but that she doesn't know the way. She thinks it's best if we all just stick together, pick a random direction, crank E1M1 until they find the control room. Now, maybe it was the drill they shoved up Vivian's nose talking, but she had to admit this was the greatest plan she had ever heard. She especially liked that part about E1M1. Vivian turned to the group, nodded her head, and took off running. Sadly, all good things must come to an end, and she knew, deep down in her heart, she was no space marine, not even a doomed one. But on the bright side of things, she found the control room, and after killing the captain of the ship and taking his gun, a hologram appeared of another alien, and he didn't sound too happy. After what Vivian could only assume was some pretty sordid language that would make any alien mother blush, another gigantic spaceship flies into view and opens fire. Sally, who again seems to be having the time of her life, tells everybody where to stand and what to do. Everybody does what they're told and gets ready for battle. Vivian, for her part, gets to press all sorts of buttons, many times. She has no idea what she's doing, but gosh darn it, when it comes to pressing buttons, she just doesn't mess around, you know? She has fun with it. Eventually, out of what Vivian can only assume was a mix of luck and space laser cannon blasts, the enemy ship explodes. And with that, Vivian bids farewell to her new space friends and returns to the wasteland, never to speak of this wild adventure again, probably because the memory was erased from the, drill in her nose. The end. So I'll cut straight to the chase here. Despite my epic story filled with space battles, aliens, and a samurai, and E1M1, Mothership Zeta was boring. Really boring. I spent, I think, a total of roughly 3 hours in this DLC. There was so much back and forth across the same hallways, same rooms, fighting the same enemies with the same weapons, doing the same tasks, and it just makes you want to just speedrun it, you know? But it's the strangest thing. Sci-fi is one of my favorite genres. I love watching alien movies and TV shows and playing, alien games. It fills me with a sense of awe and wonder. If somebody sat me down and said, hey, would you love to explore an alien ship? Man, I'd jump at the chance. But honestly, and believe me, I really hate confessing this, but I almost wanted to skip this DLC entirely. I was about an hour in and I was getting impatient. I was doing that that leg shake thing that you do when you're bored or desperate for something to finish and you're just sick of waiting. I was doing that and eventually I just had to stop. I saved the game, shut it down, and I just needed to step away from the computer. I wanted to reload an old save from before the DLC. I wanted to just say, sorry everybody, I just wasn't having any fun and I just skipped it, I even wanted to just skip the story for this, but I didn't, obviously. It isn't right to just stop, shrug, and say, who cares, Is Mothership Zeta as bad as I make it sound? No. I'm just being dramatic, but in my honest opinion, just skip it, man. Unless you really want some sort of perk or weapon from it, just speedrun it. just rip it off like a band-aid, It just wasn't my cup of tea. It truly wasn't, so there you go. Mothership Zeta! Oh, next! So, I know how this is gonna sound, especially since I just made an entire story out of something I had no fun with whatsoever, but I'm gonna gloss over Operation Anchorage. The story of this particular DLC is actually pretty interesting, but for some reason it feels off. I don't quite know how to describe it to you. It just doesn't feel like a Fallout experience. It doesn't feel like Fallout. I don't know. It just doesn't have that feeling. You know what I mean? It has the Fallout things like the guns and the sounds, the looks and so on, but it has no soul, which is fitting, oddly, because none of it's real, but let's get to that. The DLC has you responding to a call from a group known as the Outcasts. Now, these guys are actually really interesting. They're an offshoot to the Brotherhood of Steel here in DC. They believed the Brotherhood wasn't doing what they were supposed to do, and so they broke off and formed their own faction. This is, in fact, at least for me, it sort of highlights my feelings towards the Brotherhood of Steel in this game. It's just kind of weird they called attention to it in the first place. It's sort of like them being like, yeah, we know. Here you go. You know what I mean? Anyway, I'm getting distracted. The outcasts here need the help of somebody with a Pip-Boy, and we just so happen to fit that bill. With Vivian's help, they're able to enter a training simulation which shows the war in Anchorage, Alaska, or at least parts of it. While in the simulation, you undertake a series of operations, which actually at first I enjoyed. I thought I had to like sneak around and be silent, but in truth, you could do whatever you want. Vivian was terrible at stealth and just like regular guns, so she just did her best. It's actually like all your weapons are taken away. You have to, there's like healing points and ammo crates, and that stuff is really good. Like it really truly is. I actually had some really tense moments where I got like trapped in one spot and I couldn't go back because there was troops, and I couldn't progress forward because there were troops, and I couldn't fight either one because my health was too low. I had to go forward, and it resulted in me dying, coming back, dying. It was actually good. Like, that was a good feeling. But anyway, there isn't much in the way of exploration in this simulation. I did find all of the intel cases, however, and those are just like extra collectibles you can find in this simulation, just so everybody is clear. Eventually, all your missions culminate into one final attack, one final push against the enemy. And when you're actually face to face with the enemy leader, you can talk him into surrendering, which he kind of does, I guess. He chooses not to, I guess. I really don't know how to word it without getting in trouble. I mean, you can see. So anyway, after the simulation is done, a vault opens up, inside of which is a set of special power armor, which I went on to wear for the entire game. After that, I'm not 100% sure what exactly happens. Maybe I took something I wasn't supposed to, or went somewhere I wasn't supposed to go, but the outcasts just started shooting each other, including myself. 2 people survived, but they never explained what the heck just happened. Although, this is the interesting part. When I entered the room for the first time, there's a woman that goes in with you, and I spoke to her, and I said, could you repair my stuff? And she was like, well, you just saved my life, so sure, why not? So I was like, what? What are you talking about? I haven't done anything. I just opened a door, you know? So yeah, I have no clue what happens. Nobody said anything. I just went into a room. I mean, you can see it in the footage. I walked in and then turned around and just everyone started blasting each other. No one said a thing. So if you were hoping for a story, you know, ending, I really don't have one. I apologize. Much like Mothership Zeta, I really didn't have too much fun with this one. It was more enjoyable than Mothership Zeta, that's for damn sure, but it was still pretty long and pretty bland, at least for me. The whole thing, as strange as it is to say this, just kind of felt like 3 hours of running in a straight line. As I said earlier, it just felt off. The closest thing I can say is it just didn't feel like Fallout. I have no idea how much this DLC cost at launch, but if it was more than $4.99, $5, I'd say that was far too much money. The only thing of value in this DLC is the power armor, which I was able to, strangely enough, wear. For people who have never played Fallout 3 before, you have to be taught how to wear power armor before being able to put it on. So I was so damn confused how I was able to put it on right away. I actually thought I triggered a bug, and then I looked into it, and the moment you finish the simulation, you're just granted the perk to wear power armor. So I guess that could be a value as well. But that brings an end to Anchorage, Operation Anchorage. So better than Mothership Zeta, but still not really for me. So there you go. Let's move on to the next, shall we? While out exploring the wasteland, as all good wasteland adventurers tend to do, Vivian bumped into a man who thanked her for helping him kill some guys who were tracking him. Vivian didn't have the heart to tell him that she only heard the shots, and by the time she got to the scene, this mysterious gruff lad had already killed whoever was attacking him. So Vivian just smiled, nodded, and replied with a simple, "Okay." Turns out that this dirty and rather sticky looking guy, you know when you got like just a little bit of grease on you? Have you ever met a person like that? They got just a little bit of grease on them and you're looking at them and they're talking to you, but you're just hearing that and then you're just like looking at their forehead or their face, and then you could just tell if you reached out and touched them, there'd be a little bit of stickiness there, you know? Anyway, this guy kind of looked like that, and his name is Werner. At least that's how I pronounce it. It's just how it comes out. I know how it sounds in-game, but anyway. Werner was hoping somebody would hear his broadcast and come to help him with some big thing he was planning on doing. Vivian, once again, didn't have the heart to tell Werner that due to some strange bug with her Pip-Boy, she couldn't listen to any of the radio broadcast, at least not without it making some sort of weird clicking sound or skipping type sound. And so, rather than trying to figure out how to fix it, she just marched across the wasteland singing songs to herself. Those who have heard her sing say she sounds like a dying Deathclaw, which she can't think of any higher compliment. Anyway, Werner explains that he's here from a place called the Pitt, a terrible place filled with extreme radiation, mutation, constant death, famine, disease, and slavery. It's this disease which affects everybody within the Pit. Nobody knows why it is there, but it's a death sentence for all. Werner, however, learned that there was a cure, and with this cure, he could use it to bargain for his people's freedom. His plan had to be put on hold for now, though, because as soon as he found out about this cure, he became hunted. However, Vivian was here to help, and together they might just stand a chance to free his people from a man named Asher within the Pit. Werner tells Vivian that the only way inside the Pit is to look like a slave. Seems easy enough, and you know what? It is. Close by, a group of slavers are looking to sell slaves. Werner suggests somehow getting them to give you their outfit. Vivian agrees to this and heads over to the slavers. She speaks with which she assumes is the leader, and offers to buy all of the slaves. The leader is excited and agrees, and after Vivian hands over the caps and she gets the key to the pen, she turns around and blasts all the slavers. It was the right thing to do. After opening the cage, freeing the slaves, and taking the clothes off of a dead guy, Werner returns. He tells Vivian to get changed and meet him in the tunnel to the Pit. Vivian strips off all her clothes and puts on her new used dead man slave outfit. You're looking good, Vivian. Looking good. After that, it was time to travel to the Pit. In the Pit, Werner unlocks a gate for Vivian and turns to speak with her. He can't go on any further, and we're alone from this point onwards. Werner explains that our goal is to get the cure for him, no matter what. To do this, we need to meet up with our contact on the inside, a woman named Medea. She will have more information for us. After that, Werner wishes us good luck, and Vivian continues on her way. As Vivian makes her way slowly across the bridge, disarming landmines and fighting feral dogs, she can't help but feel a sense of actual fear. This place is unlike anything she'd ever seen. DC is filled with mutants, but this is insane. On the other side of the bridge, a group of thugs stop Vivian. eye her over and steal all of her belongings. As much as she'd like to lay the smackdown on these goons, she can't. She has to pretend like she's like all the other workers. As she enters the city proper, she eventually tracks down Medea. Medea leads Vivian back to her house so they can talk privately. First things first, we need to blend in. Medea warns Vivian that if we just shuffle around here, we're gonna be noticed, and more than likely, killed. She suggests signing up for steelyard duty. The workers here are forced to pick somebody to send out of the mill to collect these steel ingots. This is normally a death sentence, and in a way a sick joke the foremans pull. Why? Well, outside the walls of the pit live trogs. Now, what the heck is a trog? Well, remember that disease? Well, most of the time it causes cancer or some other serious health-related issue. Most will die, but others, much like how radiation creates ghouls, this illness will cause some to go insane and become little more than feral beasts. It twists the mind and the body, forever changing it. Trogs are a constant nightmare for the people who live here, and they are swarming the ruins of the city just outside the walls. People picked to collect these steel ingots? Well, the trogs are why most never come back. Medea suggests that if we take the job, not only might we survive, but we would definitely be taking the place of some other poor soul who'd just get killed out there. Not only that, but Medea needs some time to execute her plan. So Vivian agrees and heads to the foreman to volunteer for steelyard duty. The foreman demands Vivian collect at least 10 steel ingots, but Vivian goes above and beyond the call of duty. She doesn't stop at 10. Oh no, she goes and collects every single steel ingot in sight. 100 in total. Why did she do that? Why did she risk battling the, trogs that came her way? Why hasn't Damsel returned my calls? Why do we do anything, pals? Because we can. That's why. Anyway, after 2 hours? Seriously? I spent 2 hours searching that place? Wowzers, damn. Oh. Alright, well, anyway, after 2 hours of searching, Vivian returns, 100 steel ingots in hand. She dumps them off at the foreman and continues walking off like a boss. Medea explains to Vivian that the only way to see the pit's leader, Asher, is to earn the right of freedom. The only way to do that is to take part in a gladiatorial fight to the death. Seems simple enough, and you know what? It is. Vivian isn't a pushover. She spent her entire childhood having to deal with Butch and the Tunnel Snakes. If she can put up with that, she can do anything she wants. Vivian heads on down to the arena, cracks her knuckles, and steps through the gated door and into the ring. The crowd cheers and the announcer shouts, and the bloom hurts her eyes and... Oh, hang on. This isn't right. Hold on. Ah, perfect. There we go. The crowd cheers and the announcer shouts. The smell of dirt, rust, and blood fill the air. Vivian quickly dispatches wave after wave of enemies. Nobody stands in her way. She is the laser goddess of the pit. Now, with her freedom gained, Vivian makes her way to Asher, the leader of the people here, and the only man who has the cure. The cure Werner wants to save his people. Asher lives in a large skyscraper, more or less away from the worries and the horror of the workers' day-to-day lives. As Vivian waits to speak with Asher, she overhears him speaking with one of his crew. It appears that they're aware Werner is pretty close by and is sort of planning to do something soon. This has Asher and his crew worried and on edge. Eventually, Vivian gets the chance to speak with Asher himself. He congratulates her on her newfound freedom and welcomes her to his crew. Vivian smiles and nods. Asher goes on to explain that the times, they are a-changin' here in the pit, and soon, thanks to a recent surprise, things will get better as well. But before he can explain what he means, he switches the topic to Werner, asking if we have ever met him before. Vivian lies and tells Asher that we met a shady character, but we stayed clear of him. Asher explains that that was a good move because Werner isn't a person to be trusted. He goes on to explain that recently he had fled the pit after a failed coup and seems to have returned to try again. Asher asks us if we find Werner, we should kill him, and if we do, he'll greatly reward us. Vivian plays her role and agrees to kill Werner. This pleases Asher, who, in his excitement, decides to show Vivian something very special: the cure. He asks Vivian to follow him to a lab to meet with a woman named Sandra. However, just at that very moment, the intercom bursts to life and Asher's men scream into it, saying that the workers have begun a revolt. Asher tells Vivian to continue on without him while he leaves to deal with the revolt. Things are looking pretty good so far. Inside the lab, Vivian is greeted by Sandra, a medical researcher and wife to Asher. She explains that the cure is actually their daughter, Marie. Vivian does a double take and tries to confirm what she was just told, and it turns out, yes, the daughter of Asher and Sandra here actually holds the natural immunity to the sickness here in the pit. With enough care and time and research, they'll eventually be able to create a cure. Vivian asks if the tests done in search of the cure hurt Marie in any way, shape, or form. Sandra replies, telling Vivian that she would never do anything to hurt her child. This small baby isn't just their daughter, but hope. Hope for a brighter future. Asher and Sandra love their child, and both refuse to do anything to hurt her, even if that means the cure takes longer to create. Vivian is now left with a choice: kidnap Marie, or return to Medea empty-handed. Vivian didn't sign up to steal a child. She thought the cure would be some sort of research notes or a vial of liquid or something, anything, just not an infant. Vivian stares down at Marie and sighs before turning to leave the building. She needs answers, and Medea has them. Getting back to Medea takes a little while. It's chaos out on the streets, and the workers fight with Ash's men. Eventually, Vivian makes it back to Medea and demands answers. Medea is pretty angry with Vivian for coming back empty-handed. She assumes we turned our back on the workers and sided with Asher. Vivian asks if she knew the cure was an infant child, and Medea scoffs an exclamation. Of course she knew, but it was the only chance they had at freedom. Medea believes Asher would never waste the cure on the people because they aren't worth saving. They're already dead. Vivian tells Medea that she's upset that she would even remotely try to steal a baby. Medea cracks and confesses that she didn't really want to do it, as she didn't want to hurt anybody, even the child, but she just wants to be free. She wants everybody to be free. It was all Werner's idea anyway. Vivian tells Medea she wants to know where Werner is so she can talk to him. Medea relents and tells Vivian where he's hiding. Once in Werner's hideout, he could tell right away something's going on. Werner is furious with Vivian for not bringing the child. He explains that sometimes for freedom, you need to get your hands dirty. Sometimes there has to be sacrifices. Vivian tries to talk some sense into him, but Werner doesn't care. He tells her that she and this whole city can go to hell, and after that, he leaves, never to be seen again. Vivian makes a long trek back to Asher's building, mostly because she got lost. She feels terrible about everything. She can't help but feel like she made a mistake, but at the same time couldn't bring herself to harm a child. So many people in the revolt died on both sides. So many people will continue to die from this sickness. Once Vivian returns to Asher, she tells him that Werner is gone and he won't be coming back. Asher is pleased upon hearing this and thanks Vivian. Vivian turns to leave, her heart, mind, and soul torn asunder. Asher stops her and tells her about his plans for the future. He explains that, thanks to his daughter, there is hope. His wife will continue working tirelessly to find a cure, but never at the expense of his daughter's health. It will take time, yes, but in that time, Asher wants to continue rebuilding the pit. He wants to return this city back to a place worth living in, for everybody. He confesses that he knows how hard he pushes his workers, and that things are terrible all around, but without their hard work, without this struggle, there won't be a future. The cure will be ready in time, and when it is, everybody's gonna receive it. How long that takes, well, not even he and his wife might be around to see it. But their daughter will. The children of tomorrow will. And maybe, just maybe, that will prove to be worth it. The end. Wow, I was not expecting any of that. The Pitt DLC is something I personally went in with really low expectations. I was hot off the heels of Mothership Zeta and Operation Anchorage, so my hopes weren't high. What I got was a surprise to say the least. I wasn't expecting it to hand me a moral dilemma that actually makes me pause and say, wait a second, am I doing the right thing? Am I a bad guy? This story on its own is really good. I really enjoyed my time playing it. I said earlier that the mark of a good story is one that makes you feel something. Well, that also goes hand in hand with making you think about something. The Pit doesn't just say, off you go, champ, go solve problems with pistols and stim packs. It isn't your typical Fallout 3 mission, and for me, that makes it worth highlighting. You actually get to see another place in the world in the form of Pittsburgh, and I gotta say, it really fits into the world of Fallout and its lore. It's great. Operation Anchorage, it didn't feel like Fallout for me for some reason, but this sure as hell did. And as for boring, heck no. Maybe the steel ingot thing was a little bit boring, but it's not part of the story. You don't actually have to do it. You just need to collect the 10, not all 100, and the 10 of them are like, quite literally like a stone's throw away from the door. They're right there, you know? I didn't actually hear much about the Pit before, and it doesn't really seem to be brought up in conversation. At least I never hear about it. And that's a shame, because I think there's something to shine here. It's a glimmer of greatness in Fallout 3. It's actually kind of funny thinking about how I feel about this DLC, because I remember playing Fallout 3 for the trophies and getting to this part for the first time, and you know what? I didn't like it. I think it was a mix of like Fallout burnout and searching for all the steel ingots. I mean, there's a trophy attached to it, so I had to do it. I remember just half listening and stealing the baby and just moving on. I didn't stop. I didn't listen or anything, but this time I did stop. I did listen and I did pay attention, and I am glad I did. However, If I see one more steel ingot, I'm gonna flip out! Sometimes wasteland adventuring can really bring you down. Sometimes you want to get away from it all. Well, now you can. Welcome to Point Lookout. Lose yourself in nature's splendor. See the sights. Say Instamash. Go fishing. Meet the locals. Taste the local delicacy, punga fruit. Oh yeah, really delicious. I think I'm gonna be sick. Kick back next to a smelly swamp and slam down an entire bottle of moonshine. And hey, if none of that tickles your pickle, feel free to indulge in your more interesting desires? What even is that? So what are you waiting for? Come on down to Point Lookout today! Can I go now? Vivian had heard nothing but good things about Point Lookout. Well, she actually never heard anything about Point Lookout, but no news is good news, am I right? After making her way downtown, Vivian is able to find and charter a boat to take her to Point Lookout. But before she sets sail, she meets a woman. This is Catherine, and hey, that's my mother's name as well. Oh, isn't that so? Oh yeah. Oh, now I feel bad. Catherine here tells Vivian that her daughter, Nadine, ran away from home recently and was last seen boarding this very boat and headed towards Point Lookout. She's worried something terribly wrong has happened to her daughter since she hasn't been heard from since, and begs Vivian to search for Nadine and, if possible, bring her home. Vivian isn't heartless. She too feels a sort of motherly love for Fawkes, and would be sad if he too went missing, so Vivian agrees to look for the woman's daughter. Speaking of Fawkes, where is that guy? You know what? I'm sure it's fine. Vivian approaches the captain of this fine vessel, buys a ticket, and sets sail for the place dreams become nightmares. Point Lookout. Was that right? Whatever, close enough. The scent of stagnant air, mold, mud, fish, and death is heavy in the air there. The ever-present fog-like haze seems to hide things that make your mind begin to wander to places better left unthought about. As the boat docks, the ferryman Tobar gives us a bit of helpful advice, such as places to rest, resupply, and even explore, should the mood take us. However, he is curious about the smoke rising up in the air at a place known as Calvert Mansion. This also piques Vivian's interest, and without any other leads on the whereabouts of Nadine, Vivian heads to the mansion. The mansion is, well, it's very lavish and beautiful to look at, and as soon as Vivian gets closer to the door, a voice shouts out from a nearby intercom. The voice belongs to, well, clearly a ghoul. That gravelly voice is always a dead giveaway. The voice demands Vivian come inside and help with fighting off some tribals who seem to be attacking. Vivian wastes no time and enters inside. Once inside, it takes a moment to figure out who's who, but Vivian is quickly able to figure out who the evil attacking party is and leaps into action. After the shooting stops and there's a moment to talk, the rather dapper ghoul with a foul mouth explains that there are more tribals on the way and he needs our help to fight them off. Vivian agrees to help, partly because she was too scared to say no out of fear of being shot on the spot. She goes room to room, to room to room, to room to room, giving each foe she encounters the old zip-zap maneuver. After going to even more rooms, she finally gets the chance to speak with the ghoul. This is Desmond, and he, as you might have guessed, is having a little bit of a problem. Seems a group of tribals on the island known as... Actually, I have no idea. I don't think they even have a group name. Whatever. These tribals are actually part of a cult that believe that their god is somewhere here in Point Lookout and that they need to free their minds for some reason. Desmond here has become their target as of late, and he has no clue why. However, thanks to Vivian's arrival, he now has somebody to help him out. After some more colourful language, insults, and belittling, Desmond orders us to head on over to this tribal's church, pretend to join up, and with any luck, figure out what the heck they want with him. Vivian agrees to help, because while talking to Desmond, he lets slip that he may have heard the name Nadine, and that she may have come to his house, and that she may have gone after going to his house to visit this cult. Vivian figures she might as well kill 2 blowflies with 1 mini-nuke. After taking off the clothes of more dead bodies and then putting them on, after that, Vivian hits the swampy road to the church the cult hangs out in. At first, they're weary of Vivian, but ultimately agree to let her join their special club, if she can pass the ritual of the Mother Seed. Vivian accepts the challenge and is then told to head out into the swampy wasteland and head to the sacred bog, where she is then to collect the seeds of the Mother Punga fruit. If she survives without losing her mind, they welcome her to Club Penga. After using her super secret special wasteland power of fast travel, Vivian quickly arrives at the sacred bog. Inside, it's the same as the rest of the swamp out in Point Lookout. It's exactly the same. But she slowly makes her way past the swamp lurks, a few traps, and eventually reaches the Mother Punga fruit. Surrounding the Mother fruit are the smaller children Punga fruits, all of which Vivian takes. She takes the helpless, innocent children Punga fruits and stuffs them in her backpack for later snacks down the line. I mean, this stuff kinda grows on you after a while. Once she's done that and approaches the Munga Punga, she approaches the Munga Punga. Okay, yeah, you know what? I'm gonna roll with it. Once she's done harvesting the children Punga, she approaches the Munga Punga and begins to harvest its seeds. As she reaches out to the seeds, a cloud of spores shoots into Vivian's face, taking her by surprise. Vivian coughs and chokes until her eyes roll back in her head and she collapses on the ground. When she wakes, she looks around, unsure of how much time has passed. She shrugs and begins to head out of the swamp. As she does, she notices a rather large bobblehead, and when she gets closer to pick it up, the thing mocks her for falling into a trap. She blinks, shocked, but can't help but shrug and agree. Well, the thing ain't wrong. As she continues further on, she finds more large bobbleheads, each taking their own crack at her in some form or another. Once again, Vivian cannot deny their claims. I mean, look at these claims. You can't deny it. But did the trees always look like musical instruments? Was that phantom hacksaw always there doing that? How about that needle and thread? Was that there on the way in? Ah well, who cares? All these exploding nuka-quolums are fantastic. They really soothe Vivian's soul. Explosions just make her smile and jump for joy. Our hero continues forward until she is face to face with the nuke from Megaton, and a man greets her, complimenting that she did well and she'll pull through. After that, the bomb explodes and Vivian shoots awake. Wait, was that a dream? Ah well, who cares, because right now her head hurts like nobody's business. Vivian slowly gets to her feet and returns back to the church. Once back, the gate opens up and a man named Jimson congratulates Vivian for passing the test and welcomes her to the flock. Vivian thanks the man and asks who leads this particular group. Jimson thinks on that for a moment and answers Jackson. He further explains that Jackson has actually gone to his Cavern of Communion to speak with their god. And when asking Jimson why they attacked Desmond's mansion, he only explains that they did it because the land is evil and their god wanted Desmond and the house gone. Vivian thanks Jimson for his time and begins to explore. She is thrilled to see that the entire church ground is covered in punga fruit. Vivian picks up all the punga fruit and chows down on whatever she can't hold. It doesn't end that well for her, as you can see it. Wait a second. Did somebody cut our head open? Well, that explains the head hurting and the fact that she hasn't been able to close her mouth since leaving the swamp. So this is part of the ritual. This is what they do that allows their minds to be free, essentially. They crack open the head and let the mind breathe. You know what I mean? Just sometimes you gotta air that baby out, you know? God, nothing. I mean, I tell you what, meditation for some people, a heavy drug use for others, me, man, I just crack my head open and just let that sucker breathe. Oh, yeah. Breathe in that air, you know? Oh, anyway, with that mystery out of the way, Vivian decides to head into the church to see if she can find any more clues. And after picking every single fruit inside of the church this time, Vivian talks to a few of the tribals around here. Most of them are absent-minded, shall we say, but one in particular is just as alert as we are. This is Nadine, the missing girl. She explains that she didn't really run away, so to speak, she just wanted to explore the world. She's safe and sound and happy, but not ready to return yet, but tells us to pass that message on to her mother. Nadine also happens to know where Jackson's cave is. So, with that problem now solved, Vivian gets to work confronting their leader, Jackson. Vivian sneaks her way inside his Chamber of Understanding and eventually finds him. Well, he is actually talking to somebody down here, but it's not a god, just a hologram. A hologram of a brain? Well, that explains why everyone needs to free their minds, I guess, but Vivian sneaks closer and begins to realize that Jackson doesn't actually seem to care that we're in his secret cave. And in fact, he's rather pleasant. A little tripped out, but nice enough. Jackson doesn't offer much in the way of conversation, but the hologram he was speaking to does. The projection is thankful somebody smart enough has finally come along. It explains that the tribals think it's some sort of a god, which it likes, but everything it asks them to do, they think is some sort of a test. This brain asks us to kill Desmond, to destroy his house, and destroy some sort of a jammer he has. It seems this jammer has limited the brain's projection range to only this cave. It wants to be free. To free its mind. Ah, got it. I got it now. Anyway, after listening to the brain rant, rave, and insult us, and eventually telling us what the hell it wants, Vivian leaves the cave and returns to Desmond. Desmond can't believe what he's hearing. He knows this brain. This brain belongs to his arch-rival, Professor Calvert. Now, the short version is that he was once a wealthy, intelligent, and powerful man that belonged to a very influential family whose family ties went deep into the government and almost as high as the president. And this happened before the war, obviously. Desmond and this guy Calvert have been fighting each other for a really long time, like a long time, at least 200 years a long time. Desmond thought he actually won their little game years ago, but he thought wrong. After more insults directed mostly at us, Desmond orders us to install another jammer which will cut off, well, Calvert's ability to project his holograms for good. Vivian sighs and takes the jamming device and heads into the town. Once in town, Calvert patches himself into the PA system, ordering us to betray Desmond and not install the device. Vivian tries tuning out his voice as she installs the jammer, and once she does, Calvert vows vengeance and sends his cult to attack her before his voice cuts out. Vivian fights her way out of town and back up to Desmond's house to tell him the good news. As she approaches the mansion, however, it explodes in a spectacular fashion, knocking Vivian clear off her feet in the shockwave. After getting to her feet and watching the debris fall from the sky, Vivian stares at the now on fire remains of, well, the house. Vivian slowly explores, still trying to make sense of what just happened, but as she explores, she finds a small, thick, well-built metal hatch. She opens it and climbs down a ladder. Inside the very small bunker is one very angry Desmond. He curses and shouts far more than normal, which Vivian can understand, and it all turns out that Calvert was able to somehow activate the mansion's self-destruct feature and, well, got an explosive result, as we saw. Desmond was able to make it to his bunker just in time to survive the attempt on his life. However, in setting off the bomb remotely, Calvert gave away his position, and now we know where he's hiding. Underneath the old lighthouse close by. Desmond orders Vivian to join him on one final mansion, and Vivian reluctantly agrees. The inside of the lighthouse has been turned into some sort of secret lab that extends deep underground. Desmond and Vivian slowly make their way deeper and deeper. As they search, however, Vivian is able to read some long-forgotten computer terminals, and what she finds makes her mind ache more than it already is. So it turns out, in short, Desmond was right about how long this rivalry has gone on. He and Calvert have been stealing each other's ideas, taking credit for each other's work, stabbing each other in the back, sometimes over the smallest of things, and who knows, maybe even quite literally. They really do not like each other. We do learn that Desmond actually made himself a ghoul before the war. He was able to predict the upcoming war and turned himself into a ghoul in an effort to save himself. And Calvert, on the other hand, used his field of science to extract his own brain and place it inside a jar, but it did allow him to continue living. Still, the two never stopped fighting each other. Eventually, we come face to jaw with Calvert, who is just as insane and rude as every other time we've spoken to him. Calvert demands that we turn on Desmond, killing him here and now, and if we do, he'll give us some sort of incredible reward. Desmond, on the other hand, tells us just to ignore him and kill him right here, right now, and then the two just start arguing with each other. Vivian stands silent, mouth agape, watching the two bicker like an old married couple. Well, at least an old married couple that want to kill each other, but you still get the point. Vivian continues to be insulted by each of them and tosses around the idea of just leaving. However, she knows Calvert is pretty insane. The years of being trapped down here have made him far more unstable than he ever seemed to be. She knows he's a danger to the outside world and kills him. Desmond is happy. So happy, in fact, he doesn't insult us or demean us for a few seconds. After rewarding us, he explains that he's gonna stay down here and try to figure out what Calvert was working on all this time. And after that, he's gonna set off across the wasteland to track down another one of his rivals to start this madness all over again. Vivian can't process what she's hearing right now, and maybe it's a combination of the drills scrambling her brains on the mothership, or maybe actually having a part of her brain cut out so it could be free. But Vivian had just had enough of Calvert, but Desmond as well. She pulls out her trusty laser gun and shoots Desmond dead. Was he evil? Was she right? Vivian wasn't sure. She just had enough of being insulted. She actually missed the wasteland at this point and decided, you know what? Let's return home, but not before making one final stop. Vivian returns to Nadine and asks her one more time if she's willing to return to her mother. Nadine finally relents and agrees, but mostly because she's getting bored of everything around here. Before the two leave, Vivian pauses and asks Nadine who actually cut her head open to free her mind. Nadine thinks about it and tells Vivian that she actually has no idea, but actually wondered it herself. Her curiosity gets the better of her, and she asks Vivian to give her a day or two to find out the answer to that question before leaving Point Lookout. Vivian agrees, and the two promise to meet up at the boat in 2 days. 2 days later, Vivian makes her way back to the boat and finds Nadine there, as promised. Nadine explains that she found out not only who cut their heads open, but all of the cult members' heads open as well. Tobar the Ferryman, the guy who took us to Point Lookout. So it turns out this guy is actually a bit of a psycho. He made a deal with the cult to help them free their minds with his medical knowledge in exchange for the punga fruit to sell back in the wasteland. Only he just did this for fun. He's been killing people for years as a joke, and the punga fruit was just bonus caps, like icing on the cake. And the fact that the cult was willingly let him do this to other people without punishment was the perfect setup for him. He was on cloud 9. That is until Vivian had her say. She busts into the cabin that Nadine locked Tobar in and zippity zaps him dead right there and then. Nadine smiles as she takes control of the boat, and the two set sail back to the wasteland. Vivian also gets to keep her little piece of the brain that was cut out. Hey there, little fella. The end. Okay, now that was fun. Lots of fun, actually. I put out a poll before playing Fallout 3, asking each one of you to vote on your favorite DLC, and you all pretty much agreed Point Lookout was the best of the bunch. And you know what? I totally agree. Point Lookout is much like the Pit. It not only has a great story and side quests and lore, but it also gives this brand new place to explore. And again, like the Pit, it really has that Fallout atmosphere. There is so much to love about Point Lookout, and I wasn't kidding about the side quests. They really are great. Short, yes, but great all the same. One of mine, however, broke. I won't spoil it for anybody who wants to discover it on their own, but let's just say that I was supposed to meet up with somebody and they never appeared. I waited an entire in-game week, but they still never showed up. That quest never progressed. I looked it up and it turns out that, yeah, it is a bug. They are supposed to be somewhere specific, and there's supposed to be a bunch of stuff around there as well. But for whatever reason, my mission bugged out and I was completely unable to get the ending and the reward I actually wanted. I know what happens since I looked it up, hence how I learned the quest was bugged, but still, it was a really great quest and it only added more fantastic lore to Fallout 3. It actually really made me want more of what it was offering. Anyway, I am so glad I saved this one for last, because had I done it first or in the middle, I think it would have really made my opinions on the following DLCs a little harsher. Point Lookout is by far the best addition to Fallout 3. I do wish the area was a little bigger, but at the same time, I think the fact that it was small actually helps it, if that makes sense. If it was, say, a half or a quarter of the size of the Wastelands map, you might get a bit sick of it, but Do you know what I mean by that? I just feel like it might get a bit repetitive. You might get sick of it. It does also have more enemy types than the Pitt does, and far more than Mothership Beta did, but it still doesn't mean there's a large variety. You get swamp lurks and a new type of ghoul, but those are pretty much just reskins of their same counterparts, you know what I mean? You do get, like, the new local enemies, who, while, yeah, are just humans, they still act and look and feel different. I think they're also far more dangerous. At least, they seemed that way to me. At the end of the day, it all boils down to, I loved it. My only regret, and this is, I know, a strange one, but my only regret is that I didn't get to keep my sweet scar. The moment the DLC was done, the game just took it away from me. I was kinda hoping Vivian would roam the wasteland, mouth agape, with a massive scar and shaved head, but ah well, beggars can't be choosers, right? That finally brings Vivian's long wasteland journey to an end. The entire main story and the 5 DLC add-ons. It was a long and wild ride, and to be completely honest, even though some of it was a little bit on the boring side, I can still say with full confidence that I had a great time, and I don't regret a single moment. Let's finally move over to gameplay, shall we? There isn't a terrible amount I want to talk about here, but I did want to start with character creation, and this also falls under, you know, leveling and some other miscellaneous things, but I still branch it under the umbrella of character creation. Now, with Fallout 3 making the leap from a tactical RPG to essentially a first-person shooter, some changes and adjustments had to be made, and it all starts with character creation. I've never made it a secret that when it comes to a lot of the behind-the-scenes mathematical metagaming stats, I'm completely useless. It isn't exactly something I'm proud of, mind you, but it's never really bothered me. I never play games with, like, min-maxing in mind. For me, it slightly ruins the experience, but I know it's very important to a lot of people, and I can totally respect that. Still, it's something I can't break down for you here in these videos, and for that, I apologize. If I could point you in the direction of a fantastic video, I would. But the only channel that comes to mind is Strat-Edgy. Link will be in the description to his channel. I do my best to avoid watching videos of games I personally want to cover on this channel. However, after I cover the game, heck yeah, I watch them, and then I cry because they are far smarter than I am and able to articulate them thoughts much good. I can't do that. I know for a fact Strat-Edgy's covered the entire mainline Fallout games, and if his videos on Fallout 1 and 2 are anything like his video on the 3rd game, you're in for a treat. He makes fantastic videos that go really in depth with the game. So I apologize since I can't really give you that same experience. That aside, the good news is that a lot of the stats you'll pick for your character are pretty close to the first 2 games. Special makes a return along with perks and skills. What didn't make the cut was traits. From what I can tell, a lot, if not all traits were reworked to become perks. The negative side effect on these traits were also part of that reworking and totally removed. Let's start with Special. On the surface, pretty much everything is unchanged. Things have been reworked to fit the new gameplay style. For example, take Perception. It used to affect the % chance in ranged combat, and even how close you could get before battle started, more or less, among other things as well. Now, it, among with other things of course, helps you detect enemies, or sense them, I guess would be a better word, It basically means the distance enemies will appear on your compass. Intelligence took the biggest blow in my opinion, because we lost the low intelligent effect. Look, I get it. I really do. It was cut for probably a multitude of reasons, and I won't get into those moral reasons, but I think we can probably boil it down to effort, size, and money. The time and effort required to program and write would have been a nightmare. They would have had to add more voice lines, which would require more disk space, and of course, money, because you got to pay the voice actors to read those lines, and also pay your workers to implement them in the game, and all the coding, and so on and so forth. As it stands in Fallout 3, you can get some low intelligence moments, but it pretty much changes nothing. At the end of the day, I'm thankful everything pretty much stayed the same, at least when it comes to special stats. You can still build characters right from the start, just like you could in the other two games. Now, where things begin to change a lot is skills. I won't cover everything, of course, because we've already been here for hours, but I'll quickly gloss over it. A lot of your basic skills make a return. Small guns, big guns, energy weapons, unarmored, all of that stuff. It all makes a return, and that's all well and good, but some were cut completely or merged into others. Example of a merger? Traps and throwing. They were merged into explosives. This was done because of the change to first person, of course. You can quite literally see traps on the ground with your own eyes. It would have been a little strange if they just popped into existence in front of you. This makes sense. Throwing, it changed more because throwing weapons aren't even in the game at all. At least I've never seen one. Because of that, the only thing it would have affected would have just been grenades at that point, so you might as well just cover it all under explosive. So that's what they did. This is all making sense again so far. However, other skills didn't make the merger. They just got completely cut out. Things like gambling and outdoorsman, first aid. Now, I'm 100% sure parts of these were reworked and merged into something else, and aside from just the obvious first aid and doctor becoming medicine, I couldn't tell you if something like gambling, became something else. Are these good changes? Well, I miss spears as a choice. I mean, seriously, what was it with Bethesda and spears? They were removed from Oblivion and now Fallout 3. Did somebody at Bethesda have like a spear phobia or something? I guess we'll never know. Anyway, the answer is, it really comes down to how you feel about it. Personally, I don't mind. Like I said, sometimes it makes sense, but other times it does feel like it came at a cost, The game, and I can't prove this, mind you, but the game feels easier. You have less skills to sink your points into, and thus you end up becoming even more powerful, and becoming more powerful rather quickly. Now, like I said, I might be totally wrong. I don't think I am, but I could be. This problem does become clear when you look at perks. Now, perks in Fallout 1 and 2 were given out once every 3 levels. In Fallout 3, however, you're given a perk every single level. And the level cap of this game, well, it was 20, but it's now 30 thanks to Broken Steel add-on. I think this was, in my humble opinion, I think it was far too often. Perks can be powerful, and with some traits losing their negative effect and becoming perks, this, I feel, compounds the issue. I took intense training, which allows you to raise one of your special stats by 1 each time you pick it, and you can pick it 10 times, so that's 10 points you can add to any of your special stats. Now, I took that to its complete maximum, right? Like, I did it 10 times. Now, this perk is pretty much identical to the gain perk from Fallout 2. The only difference is you could choose that perk once you reached level 12. I'm pretty sure. And I also think that it only worked once per special stat. So one for strength, one for perception, and so on and so forth. But with intense training, you can, like I said, do it 10 times. And I'm pretty sure you can pick intense training right from the start of the game. Can you see the problem there? Now, I know that there is the almost perfect perk, which you can unlock and gain access to at level 30. That perk will bring each special stat up to 9 from a total of 10. And when you add Bobbleheads on the top of that, all of these stats can go to level 10. Look, I know that there's probably about a million ways to break Fallout 3 and cheese it to hell. And I know you could do this in Fallout 1 and 2 as well, but my point still remains. A perk every single level is just far too much. You become so overpowered really damn early, and this, combined to the changes to special and the stats, I really think Fallout 3 is just easy. Is it fun to run around as a powerful god among men? Yeah, you better believe it is, but should you be able to? Well, that's up to you. For me, it didn't feel right, you know? It doesn't feel very Fallout-y, you know? I'm used to that struggle at the beginning. Again, playing quote-unquote correctly, you should be playing it, you know, weak at the start and then eventually get stronger as time goes on. Overall, the changes made to character creation, levels, and so on were made mostly to deal with the shift in playstyle. But I think we can all agree that a lot of these changes were also made not only from the playstyle, but to pare down and make the game feel easier and more accessible for a broader audience. Now, how you feel about that, it's up to you. And honestly, I guess I'm fine with it, you know? Fallout 3 has a new composer this time around, Inon Zor, and he does a great job. It still has that Fallout feel, but adds a sort of hope to it, if that makes sense. The music reflects how the game looks, and none of the score punches you in the face and annoys you. There is nothing worse than music in a game that stands out far too much and becomes annoying. What has been added to the musical score is, of course, licensed music. Now, we all know how YouTube feels about licensed music, and I would love to share some with you, but I don't want to get in trouble. So, I wanted to return to a story I told in one of my earlier videos for the Fallout series. And it was how I was at work and hijacked the speaker for the sound system to listen to Fallout music. I'd be lying to you if I told you the music wasn't catchy. However, something I didn't bring up in that story was how I came to love these songs. See, I actually didn't like the music the first time I played it, or at least partway through. The licensed music, that is. I'd switch on the radio from time to time, of course, mostly to listen to Three Dogs news updates. But other times, I'd hear the music play on the NPC's radios. Now, this was fine, but I got sick of hearing the same song over and over and over again. Seriously, it felt like Butcher Pete was always hacking, whacking, and smacking, or somebody didn't want to leave the Congo, oh no, 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 no. However, as the hours started to rack up, and what I can only imagine was some form of wasteland madness, I found myself humming along to the music, and then tapping my foot, and then singing, terribly mind you, and all to myself, but still, they're earworms. Now, I can't get the damn songs out of my head. Do you have any clue how often I'll be just doing something and catch myself singing a song from this game? Because it happens a lot, like a lot. Now, I'm sure there are some people out there who hate the music, but I love it, and it grew on me. All the music in this game is fantastic, and I've got nothing bad to say about it. So let's move on to companions. Ta-da! Alright, let me finally bring up the problem with the companions in this game. If you recall, I said I had a few problems with Dogmeat, and I'd like to explain what those issues were. In Fallout 3, as expected, you get a whole new group of companions to bring along your rampage across the dirty, dusty, rad-filled wasteland. Some may say that they're nothing more than pack mules, but to me, I like to think that they aren't pack mules, you monster. They're friends. Friends who I treat like a pack mule. In Fallout 3, you've got your choice. There is a lot of pack mule friends you can pick, and it was far more than I actually thought. Of course, I knew of Dogmeat, Forks, and a ghoul, but I actually had no idea Butch could come along with you, or that there was a soldier in the Brotherhood of Steel you could bring along. I also had no idea that there was even a robot companion, at least until the making of this video. Each one, at least the ones I know, have their own little story, personalities, and morals. This is never not a good thing. I love getting to know my companions and forming friendships with each one of them. Now, my own personal problem is that a lot of the missions will kick them out of your party. Like, for example, Vault 87. Dogmeat got removed as my companion because I was going somewhere he couldn't follow. This happened far more than I ever remembered it happening. It actually brought to the surface a memory of me back in the day actively ignoring companions and going it solo. I got annoyed going back to Vault 101 to pick up Dogmeat only to stumble upon a main quest that sent him right back again. This, I'm sure, isn't an issue for everybody. In fact, some might not even have noticed or remembered. But it really does tie back to what I said about Fallout 3's original ending. If Bethesda had no problems kicking your companions to the curb for some random side quest, DLC, or main story mission, why in the world was it cool to just have them tag along in the final one? Where was the ethical dilemma in that? Doing it made them look stupid. Stupid enough to need to correct it in the DLC. And look, I won't go into it again. I said my piece back then. We're done. Are the companions good? Yeah, they are. Can they die? Ah, yeah, okay. Now that is a hot button issue in of itself. I remember people very loudly shouting at Bethesda for allowing Dogmeat to be killed. Not the other companions they didn't care about, just Dogmeat. It became such a problem that they actually had to add a special perk that let you choose one of his puppies to tag along if he died. Look, if you were upset by the death of a companion, that's good. It means you cared. Or maybe you're just upset because you had to carry the junk back wherever you need to go, but you still cared. Now, I'm not here to argue if it's a right or wrong thing because, once again, it comes down to a personal preference. I don't mind it because I was used to it from the first 2 games. If my companion died, they died. It was part of the story. Unless it was complete utter garbage like Vic stubbing his toe in the middle of a shootout only to run away and cry in a corner somewhere and be lit up by the enemy. Maybe I'd reload then. The same would be said about this game. If they died, they died. But if they die in stupid ways, yeah, I'd totally reload. Because, much like Fallout 1 and 2, the companions in Fallout 3 are just as brain-dead sometimes. I remember one time Dogmeat got stuck on a rock and just kept running in place while a pack of ghouls beat him. Thankfully, I was able to kill them in time, but it's just dumb things like that. The AI, not only for companions but for everybody, can be that bad. If my companion died under one of those circumstances, yeah, I would have gotten pretty angry and reloaded. That aside, I do like the companions in this game. I just wish they ironed out a few more of the bugs, but it's Bethesda, what can you do, you know? Let's move on to side quests now. So I'm not gonna go over each and every side quest and make up a fun little story, so don't panic. Let me just regale you with some of them. Not all of them. Across the wasteland, you'll meet a ton of people. Some will ask for help on many different issues. For example, the bomb in Megaton. You can disable it, or you could wipe the whole town off the map permanently. That's amazing. And so, because of stuff like that, you won't be lacking of anything to do in Fallout 3. Other stuff you can do is you can help create a book by doing all the nasty testing, like blowing up mole rats, or blowing up yourself, or blowing up a landmine and then yourself. It's a great way to not only unlock places to visit, but teach you more about the game without being like one of those overly obvious tutorials. One of the big ones in this game is collecting a new type of Nuka-Cola, Nuka-Cola Quantum. There's a woman in a tiny town named Sierra who asks you to collect 30 bottles of the stuff. Now, thankfully, there's more than 30 bottles in the game, so you're not just, you know, like if you miss one, it's gone forever. You will still have to do a little bit of searching, but it's still a nice little quest, and if you like collection quests like I do, you'll probably like this one. There's another fun unmarked quest, which is also good, in which you meet a family in a small town, and I'll just leave it at that one. Anybody who's played Fallout might see this town as a familiar town. Another, you can guide a kid from Little Lamplight to Big Town. He never shuts up. In fact, I think he told me the same story like 30 times. After that, you continue to help the town of Big Town, which is really nice. That's 2 quests blending together. There is, of course, one quest I need to bring up. I won't spoil the ending for anybody who hasn't played, but you get to meet up with Harold once again. And for those who don't know Harold, he was a character that appeared in Fallout 1 and Fallout 2 and some of its spin-offs, and it was good to see him again. Albeit briefly. And finally, there is one side quest everybody talks about when it comes to Fallout 3, mostly after the release of Fallout 4, but still. I am, of course, referring to the Replicated Man quest. I won't spoil anything, but the quest itself has gained infamy, let's say. At the time, it was fine, there was no issues, but with the launch of Fallout 4, well, the aim of the quest is to track down an android who has escaped from another place in the wasteland known as the Commonwealth. Now, that's all well and good, but the problem is somebody at Bethesda really liked this quest because they pretty much turned it into a massive deal in Fallout 4. Like, massive, as in the whole game is practically this quest. My 2 cents on the issue is, it doesn't matter. I try not to look at games in the future when it comes to talking about them. I want to roughly pretend that the game I'm talking about is the newest in the series. It sort of helps me let the game stand on its own merit, so to speak. Yeah, I stack it up to the ones that came previously, but still roughly on its own merit. But if you just have to know my answer, yeah, it is a little eye-rolly. At least today it is. It doesn't ruin anything, but still. At the time, I do remember actually liking this quest. It was sort of like how the Pit is today. It's one of those moral questions, like an ambiguous, gray zone. Did I do the right thing? Did I do the wrong thing? Is it humane? Is it inhumane? What's correct, you know? When I replayed the mission for this video, I was still surprised to find myself questioning things, which is really great. I mean, that's always a good thing. Now, that brings us to the end of side questing. There's plenty to do in C. You're not gonna lack for anything, so get out there and start questing. Now, finally, at least I think it's finally, I want to cover Bobbleheads and skill books. I just want to quickly super duper cover these, just really quick. I really enjoy their addition in Fallout 3. Skill books have always been around from the start, and it's fantastic to see them back again. Bobbleheads are new. They give you a permanent boost to a particular skill, depending on which one you find. And also, depending on which one you find, as I briefly mentioned in character creation, they can upgrade your special stat by 1, depending on which one you find. For example, luck will upgrade luck, obviously. I love being rewarded for exploring, and these are all fantastic rewards. Sometimes you can come across some special armor or a weapon, but depending on your current level, they actually might be useless to you. Bobbleheads and skill books, on the other hand, tend to be far more useful. I mean, yeah, depending on how you built your character, they might be useless, but still. I love collecting things, and especially seeing all of them collected in one place just like this. Chef kiss. Actually, on the topic of this, I actually had one of these bobbleheads in real life. The one that came with the collector's edition of the game. I did have that bobblehead. I found it in like a thrift store somewhere, or like a secondhand store, depending on however you want to call it. I did sadly lose it, pretty much along with my entire video game collection. It was completely destroyed and wiped out by a cyclone or a hurricane, depending on where you're from. Still, the memory remains, and honestly, I didn't lose my life, so that's all that matters, right? Anyway, I think that's everything I wanted to cover. At least I hope it was, but knowing my luck, I'm gonna be editing this or watching it later or something, and I'm gonna be like, damn it, I wanted to add that. Well, these things, they happen. So let's move on to confession time. I was actually terrified to cover this game. This isn't the only game I felt terrified covering, however. Morrowind and Skyrim were up there as my biggest fears. Fallout 3, like those games, has a lot of fans, but they also have haters. And I can totally understand why people feel the way they do about these games. For some, they're classics that they grew up with, and for some, they were a punch in the face for Bethesda, especially Fallout 3. For me, Fallout 3 falls under both. Fallout 3 can rub me the wrong way sometimes, and I'll see something and be like, why? Other times, I can just kick back and have a good time, lose myself in the story and the lore and the locations and people, but still, I can understand both sides. Fallout 3 aged far better than Oblivion did, and once again, I think it comes down to Oblivion just being the first of its kind, if that makes sense. Bethesda learned a lot of things and fixed them when it came to making this game, and you can completely see it. Fallout 3, on its own merit, is a wonderful game. But, like I've said before, and I'll say it again, Fallout 3, in my eyes, was great. Flawed, yes, but great nonetheless. I did play Fallout 1 and 2 before diving into this game. I did it then, and I did it again now. I see the problems. I see what was added and removed. I see it all, and yes, part of me weeps. Fallout changed into something else. It became Bethesda's Fallout. It has their DNA all over it. Oblivion with guns. I can't put into words what's wrong. It's just a feeling. I look around and I see the things like Nuka-Cola, vaults, names, locations, enemies, and more. I see those things and feel something's wrong. It's such a strange thing to try to explain. How can I translate a feeling to you? I can't. However, nothing will change the cold, hard facts. And the fact is, I don't hate this game. I had a good time playing it. Fallout 3, in my eyes, isn't a sequel to Fallout 1 and 2. Fallout 3 is its own thing. It's like watching a remake. You might hear the same words spoken, the same locations, music, and so on, but it isn't the original. It's new. It's okay if you don't like it. It's okay if you hate it. It's okay if you love it. Part of me feels like Fallout 3 wasn't made for me. It wasn't made for old school fans. It was made for the new generation. It's sad. It breaks my heart. I won't get the Fallout sequel I wanted. I didn't get my Fallout 3. I got this one. But still, I can't hate it. I had fun. I see it for something new, and that's all right. I know you'll disagree with me, and part of the reason that's why I was scared to make this video. All around me, I see hate for Fallout 3, and like I said, maybe I'm just not looking hard enough. I want to see the love. I want to see the joy. I want to hear people say, I had a great time with this game. And who knows, that person might be you. Should you play Fallout 3? Yes. Yes, you should. But manage your expectations. This isn't the old school. This is the new school. The future. Up next is Fallout New Vegas. I've actually already finished the game. I should have been more focused on writing the script, but what can I say? I didn't want to stop. Take care, be safe, and for the love of God, thank you for sticking around. Holy flamin' fire ants, this was a long one. I swore I would never do it again. Not after Skyrim. And I guess I didn't learn my lesson. Maybe next time. Oh, peace out, pals. Bye.